app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
7:30. It is Friday morning today. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. Adrian here, Kathleen there. Morning, Kathleen.
Good morning, Adrian.
And Colm over there. How are you, Colm?
Adrian and Kathleen, happy Friday.
How are you getting on?
Hope you're well. Hope everyone's well out there today. Looking forward to the weekend and looking forward to tonight when Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal team up.
Oh wow, we're straight into
one last time. I couldn't help myself. I just couldn't help myself. Went straight into it.
Introduce our audience a little more sort of lightly with a little bit of actual conversation they wanted to hear, like a bit of football chat.
No, we'll get to the B and C stories, but we got to start with the A1. No, I'm just saying Federer and Nadal it's huge. Like they're teaming up, and it's the last time we'll ever see Roger Federer on a tennis court. It's big news tonight. That's going to happen. London, 9 p.m. Eurosport.
The Laver Cup.
Team
Europe against Team World.
Team World. Poor old Jack Sock and Francis Tiafoe who have to play Nadal and Federer tonight. If they win, there'll be riots.
Do you think they're actually going to go for it? Like, do you think Tiafoe and Sock are actually going to try and give them a
I'd say so.
Or are they going to just hold back? So you were saying you saw a video of Federer playing and he looked like past the pace. And I feel like the way they've all been talking about this, it's a bit like, oh, we're here for the crack and it's to mark the occasion, and they're swanning around London in nice suits. Yeah. Pointing out the shard to Andy Murray and telling him what it is.
That was ridiculous, but that was insane. So what's that building from Andy Murray, who's lived in London for many years? Adrian, then cynical Adrian says, and the office guffaw, he was like, well, what are you all getting excited about? It's clearly a setup. Now maybe Murray was just trying to start conversation among his peers. It's a bit awkward, but
you have form for naivety in relation to that stuff.
No, I wouldn't at all. No.
Come on, tell us what time is kick-off?
Kick-off is due at 9 p.m.
Good.
And it's on Eurosport. But as Kathleen was asking there, like, will Tiafoe and Sock hold back a bit? I don't think so. I think it'd be nice to have on the LinkedIn, like, beat Federer in his last ever match. Be good to have. And
you must be counting your lucky stars to get a matchup like that. You know, if you're Tiafoe or Sock, that you get to say to yourself, oh, I got to play Federer in his last ever game before retirement. And it's just by pure coincidence that this is the event he's chosen.
And his profile's never been higher because he got to the semi-final of the US Open, Tiafoe. And Sock's a very good doubles player, actually. Teamed up with our lad Nick Kyrgios many a time, but it should be great. And it's just brilliant to see Nadal and Federer play together in the same side of the court in a competitive match.
It's
like
not.
That. It is great. Okay, here we go. What's the problem?
No. Like it would be. That'd be absolutely fine. If the main things in my mind is how it's just a limp over the line, isn't it? And he needs to do that because physically he's not up to anything else. But it'd be amazing if he was in a position to be able to compete at a proper tournament, like on his own.
He's 41 years old.
Look, I appreciate all these.
Colm looks like he's about to jump across the table and take you out for suggesting such a thing.
Come on now. I don't even think you believe what you just said.
What's not to believe? It'd be a far better thing to be able to see Roger Federer doing what he has done best for the last 38 years or whatever. Like
of course,
professional at a proper tournament. Of course it would.
Oh no, that's acknowledged by everyone, including the man himself. But in light of all the injury problems that he's had, like his knee is banjaxed. And last time he played a match was Wimbledon singles last year when he lost to Hubert Hurkacz in straight sets. The final set was 6-love. So his last ever singles match as a set, he lost 6-love. But there was no chance of him doing anything else. And actually, I thought we may never see him again. So I think to see him in a doubles match is okay. Maybe a bit underwhelming. But the fact that he's playing alongside Rafael Nadal, that'll be box office stuff. And I think if you're channel surfing tonight and you have the channel or have a link, I think it's a great stuff to watch.
What will you do? What's your setup now this evening?
Set up, might watch England against Italy. Jonathan Wilson set us up for it nicely yesterday on the show. I always like watching Italy. I absolutely loved that team for the Euros. That one, I just loved that team. We were reminiscing about that final yesterday, just how close England got to winning that thing, which I know is it's on the record and we talked about it last year, but you actually forget that just a little over a year ago, England nearly won a major tournament, and when Jorginho missed that penalty, we thought England were going to go on and win it. So it would be nice to see the rematch and see where both sides are now. It's a very different complexion for both sides over a year later. I'm asking
more, like, what are you doing for the football? For the tennis. What's your setup?
What do you mean, like with the wine and cheese equivalent of you? Well, I'll just watch it.
Okay.
And
Not going to pop a
Great
bottle
that you're
in.
here this morning. That's it.
I'll probably
I'll just watch it.
I'll probably watch it.
It's like he's been banging on, right, since this was announced. When was it? About 2 years ago that he's retiring, and he's now limping over the line, as we've established. And Cullum's response to, his greatest hero of all time is, I'll probably watch the England match, and just watch it.
Well, say, what do you want me to do? Like,
no, actually, some sort of a setup,
the wine and cheese is a distraction, really, from your Leinster watching, right? So I'll probably just turn it on and I'll watch it, right? And then I might have my phone on, and I'll probably go on Twitter. I'll probably be texting you, being like, "What a shot there! What a backhand!" And you'll be like, "What are you talking about?"
I won't be watching.
What are you talking about? Why won't you be watching?
There'll be some sort of TikTok highlights at some point, and that'll be a good way to be.
Yeah, that's the problem. People who just watch the highlights of this, but I implore people, Richard Ray Balls, everybody watching this morning, Nadal, Federer teaming up tonight one last time. It's going to be exceptional.
I'm quite sad I'm missing it. I'm going to Dara O'Brien tonight for a culture night in Baker Street, and I'm going to be sitting there, I think, at the table, kind of. And then I'm worried he'll spot me or something with the light on my face.
I actually believe Kathleen would do that. Would actually double job, would go to a bit of comedy and also watch the tennis.
For something important, a Republic of Ireland match, like if you were at an event, Kathleen, and the Republic of Ireland were playing, then you would be entitled to watch that game no matter what was going on. Even
I've done it many times. I remember doing it for the Ireland win over in America, being at a gig and fully just standing there in the middle of the Olympia, everyone dancing around me, just watching it on my phone and then shouting and everyone being like, yeah, and thinking I was really enjoying the music. And I was like, no, we scored a try.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's legit. You could be at a wedding, and if there's phone, you can watch the match on TV as you go. It took him about 5 minutes to get there, but
it's really good etiquette, isn't it, to watch a game at a wedding?
Speaking of limping over the line,
that was nice. Trying to say, there's loads coming up there.
Dara O'Brien will be excellent.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've never seen him live.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to it. Okay. My friend that I'm going with has been to him a good few times and has always said it's a good show. But I enjoy watching him on TV. So
yeah, he is great, and a fellow Arsenal fan.
There you go.
Yeah.
Coming up, thank you, Colm, at 7:37 on this Friday morning, we are going to talk to Alan Quinlan. There's a lot to discuss with Alan Quinlan this morning. That's coming up in about 10 minutes' time or thereabouts. So we'll chat to him about that. We've Kieran Donaghy and Rich Ensor, the announcement of a basketball championship coming to the National Basketball Arena a bit later this year, and both of the lads will be in studio for you in around about half an hour's time. We might pump Kieran for a few GA questions while he's in as well. Aisling O'Reilly is at Dromoland Castle for day 2 of the KPMG Women's Irish Open, and she'll bring us the very latest recap the happenings of day 1, and including a good day in the end for Eoin Maguire. So we'll get into that with her there. Tell you what's happening across the back pages a bit after that. Tom English, of course, regular contributor across the show. We'll talk all things Scottish football for the weekend that's in it. And Vic Akers will be with us at 9:10. The man, Kathleen, who made Arsenal, basically, is what we're saying.
Essentially, yes. I mean, he created the women's side. He worked as a kit man under Wenger for the entire time that he was there. His son then became the kit man for Arsenal. He coached 2 Invincibles teams, which I don't think, well, he was there for 2 Invincibles teams on the coaching staff, we will say, which I think is pretty impressive because he brought Arsenal women to one and then he also brought the men to one as well. I'm going to say he brought them. It wasn't Wenger. It was all Vic Akers. But no, really looking forward to talking to him later, especially on the eve of such a historic weekend in the WSL. I mean, 50,000 tickets have been sold in the Emirates for the North London derby, really seeing that kick effect from the Euros during the summer, and I'm just really jealous I'm not going to be there.
Yeah. It will be an absolutely epic event, and another milestone, of course, landmark milestone for the WSL. Tell us about the Spain women's team as well. There's a big threat to quit here if shades of stuff that's happened here previously, but bring us up to speed of what's going on.
Yeah, so very much on the different side of the excitement over the weekend, but basically 15 players from the Spain national team have written to the Spanish Federation and said that they will not play while the coach George Vilda is still there. Now, this isn't the first time that players have voiced their annoyance over this coach, and it's not even the first time that Spain national team have done it in general. They crashed out of the 2015 World Cup, and afterwards several players tried to oust Ignacio Cuerda, and they succeeded, but several of those players, including Vera Boquete, never played again for the Spanish women's team. So where we had the chance to say we don't like the setup, the FAI actually did listen in the end, whereas the Spanish FA have not listened. Vilda came in 2015 then afterwards, and everyone hoped it was the start of a new dawn, but it very much wasn't. The general impression is that he's a company man for the FA. He's good friends with the Federation President, Rubiales, and they haven't officially announced the list of players, but sources in Spain say that it includes like a lot of the top players in the team, including the likes of Mapi Leon, Guerrero, Sandra Panos. You also have Claudia Pina, who's kind of like the Gavi of the Barcelona and Spain team. Bonmati. You know, these are some of the biggest names in women's football right now, and they're writing to the federation and saying we don't want to play for this man. And shockingly, the federation came back and said, well, if you don't want to play, then we're just going to ban you for 2 to 5 years. Like, they took it from the sense of this is disrespectful to the FA. It's an honour to play for your country. You don't get to decide who the coach is. And sources have said that the players are unhappy with the management of Villa's management of injuries, the atmosphere in the locker room, and also his team selection and his training sessions, which, I mean, is anyone on the outside could even see that his team selections are strange. When he was going to the Euros, he brought a strange collection of not that many attackers, even though Spain have some of the best attackers in the world. He plays players out of position. And he was handed a 2-year contract right before the Euros, which, again, is a strange thing to do. There was so much hype around Spain, you would think you would wait until the end of the tournament and actually see could he deliver on the hype. But instead, he was given that safety net. So it'll be really interesting to see how this unfolds, because I don't see these players standing down. One of the noticeable names that's missing is Putellas, who obviously Ballon d'Or winner, one of the best players in the world, is currently out with an ACL injury that she got just the night before the Euros started. There's some talk that she's not there because of that reason, so she hasn't been called into the national camp anyways. But she has supported the players when they initially brought this up in the last international window. They went straight to Vilda and had kind of an internal talk, and then they came out and said that they were going to play. So it's interesting. They're playing Sweden on October 7th and the US women's national team on October 11th, and there's some talk that those teams should boycott the matches in support. So definitely the sort of thing that's going to keep rumbling on, and you just hope that the RAF kind of get their, or their RFEF get their act together.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with it. It would certainly be the, you would imagine, rather than that entire mutiny, the easiest option, and possibly at this point the wisest option. We've the small matter as well, the Republic of Ireland obviously in action this weekend, and it feels kind of like, you know, there's obviously been a lot of, it's been a weird last couple of windows, but there's been a general positivity, and then suddenly Scotland go and do what they did the other night, and suddenly, I don't know if it's like an Irish mentality, maybe it's just me, but I'm suddenly feeling like, oh Jesus, like, you know, because they're in a crest of a wave.
Here we go again.
And, you know, all sorts of John McGinn is going all Braveheart in the papers this morning about like, oh, we need to avenge, you'll never take our something. And it does feel as if like there's a bit of momentum swing almost back, and they're at home obviously at Hampden Park and stuff, but and we're hoping to catch up with Nathan. He's got on a flight in the last 15 minutes, is that right?
I believe
have we heard from him?
I have from this morning. No,
he's on the OTB jet.
The private jet, yeah. I spoke with him yesterday evening, Nathan, before he went on air last night, and he was very excited. Kid before Christmas about going to Scotland. Yeah. I haven't heard from him since.
Oh, well,
hope he's okay.
He was on WhatsApp 4 minutes ago. So
was he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good sign. But he's very keen to come on the show this morning, so we'll try and get him on later. He wants to give us the deets from Scotland. Yeah. But I think he's in transit.
How are we all feeling? What's the
confident? Yeah, because it was actually Nathan alluded to it himself when he was on air last night, saying he was in the office on Monday, and he was saying, you know, if it's 2 negative results here against Scotland and Armenia, then he thinks Stephen Kenny's under serious trouble. And I was, my first reaction was to say, no, that can't be right, because it was such a positive June. But then you remind yourself that the first 2 of those 4 games, there was mutiny on. Remember the morning after we were in here and we spent about 45 minutes talking about the future of Irish football, and we were in an existential crisis all over again. And then all of a sudden those latter 2 matches occur. A very convincing win against Scotland, and then a great result away to Ukraine, where the now famous Nathan Collins goal. So it seems like we're on a real high with Kenny at the moment, but it's such on a knife edge, and that's been the case for the whole Kenny reign. The one thing different about this week leading up to it is that the theme of Kenny so far has been disrupted build-up, players unavailable for whatever reason, injury, COVID, or truncated preparation. Not this week. They've had loads of time. They arrived, I think they gathered on Sunday night. They've had a number of days to train, and the match is still over 24 hours to go. So there's a lot of time for kind of cohesive strategy to form. And I just hope that it is a positive 2 rounds of fixtures, and at this time next week we're talking about how bright the future is under Stephen Kenny, but it's so topsy-turvy, lads, and if it goes badly, we could have that conversation all over again like we did.
What is a positive for you though? Like, say we go to
4
Scotland
points.
tomorrow, but say like we lose 2-1 or something, but it's a good performance and we're just beaten by a better team. Like, do you think Kenny is still in trouble then?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because for me, yeah, personally, that's absolutely the case. Like, and you're saying, Kathleen, like 2-1, good performance. For me, in my head, Scotland score a late winner there, and Ireland also nearly score a late winner before Scotland do. And for me, it was like, that's fine. I think if Ireland play the football that Kenny wants us to play, that for me would be positive. But if that exact same occurrence was to preside over itself, like, I would say that a lot of people would be Kenny out, because people are waiting for the ice to fall under Kenny. For people who don't rate him, for people who do, it would have to be a catastrophic result, probably the equivalent of what we gave Scotland in June, for there to be any narrative changed about the future of Kenny.
Who are those people suggesting that comes in his place is the thing? Because like, it's grand to be saying, well, the result didn't go our way. Yeah. Well, he's linked. It's funny because he is linked with the. We were chatting about it yesterday. He was linked with the Buzz job, and he was on Virgin Media last night. I think you saw it, Kathleen, and he was saying he wasn't saying. He wasn't running a million miles away from it.
No, I was quite surprised. I thought when he was asked about it that he was going to be a bit more like, oh, don't believe everything you read in the papers. But he basically said it's the nicest story that he's ever been linked with, and he really needs to step up. It's time for him to go to the next level. And to me, it sounded like a come and get me.
Come and get me, yeah.
And whether it's Buzz or someone else.
Interviews are underway, according to one of the papers today, and that it seems like he has been interviewed for it. So,
your point there about who would replace Stephen Kenny, I think that's always been the argument for the pro-Kenny camp. But I think for the anti-Kenny camp, that's irrelevant. It's like, well, if the manager's not working, get rid of the manager, and we'll go from there. And we'll decide. But then that's just. But I would like.
Then that just doesn't make any sense.
Well, you're preaching to the converted. I would absolutely go along with that. I mean, I'm so pro-Kenny because he's trying to modernise Irish football, and it was right up until Kenny got appointed that you would watch Ireland games under Mick McCarthy in the second spell, Martin O'Neill, Giovanni Trapattoni and so on, and it felt like a throwback when you were watching those games. If you were watching the Premier League or whatever football you were into, that felt modern. And it felt progressive, and then you would watch an Ireland game and you felt like you were back in the 90s. And I don't believe that's the case with Stephen Kenny. But the problem with Stephen Kenny is that the results haven't been overall absolutely brilliant. It's been very inconsistent. So that opens the door for his detractors. And I do understand the point of view of a lot of people that for them it's a results business and it's all about getting to major tournaments and, you know, giving it a great go and getting to the last 16 and last 8 and having a great time and the reading in the year's moments and all that. But for me, these is the necessary steps to take to make Irish football attractive to watch. And I think there's no better man for it than Stephen Kenny, because he also, as well as having tactical acumen, really, really cares. Like, really cares about this team.
And I think that you also have to sprinkle in the mutterings that come from within the squad, because like there has been other managers over the last number of years where, you know, you would hear on the grapevine that things were not going that well, that, you know, training wasn't necessarily everything it might have been at that level, and, you know, the tactical ambition of the team wasn't exactly what it should be. But the mumblings and public and otherwise from the current squad is so positive. Like, I mean, I do think that has to be, you know, there's nobody pulling in the opposite direction here as well, which is so often, I mean, we've just been discussing in relation to the Spain thing. I mean, I don't know ultimately what the end point of that is on your question, Kathleen. Like, I mean, if they end up going over and, you know, they get beaten and the performance hasn't been great, then maybe we all start to suddenly change our mind and we start talking about Big Sam again.
I think the second game is probably more important.
It is,
yeah.
Well, I mean, Scotland, if we put up a performance against Scotland and don't get the points, it's fine. But if we do that on Tuesday, then we're in trouble. And I think Kenny's in trouble then. I do agree. I came round to Nathan's idea a bit more whenever I talked to him a bit more about it, but I do think that second game is much more.
Excuse me.
What are your expectations for the next 2 games?
I don't think we're going to win tomorrow. I think we should win against Armenia. That's basically it. But it depends on how we play tomorrow.
Yeah, well,
because like you said, everything before this has been there's been so much disruption. Yeah. There's been so much confusion. Like, the team for tomorrow is pretty much set apart from one or two positions where we're like, could go this way, could go that way. Scotland are in such good form. They're on a high. I feel like there hasn't been that much excitement here about the game. I don't know. It feels like we're almost waiting for the inevitable. Yeah. And we think the inevitable is going to be not a good result. So it's hard. But I'm not optimistic we'll win, but I'm hopeful that we will just put in a good performance at least.
I think if we show some of the progression that we had in the last window, then, you know, there's no reason for us to be, and I'm sure Stephen Kenny internally would not be overly sort of banging the drum about Scotland's 3-0 win over Ukraine and suddenly how they're, you know, become world beaters, and they've done all this work in the lecture room, as Steve Clark was talking about during the week, and they've, you know, nailed their set pieces, and I'm sure that that stuff exists in the background, but from Stephen Kenny's point of view, that's not a big topic of conversation amongst the players. We've advanced, we're in a much better position, we're maturing as a group. We should hold no fear over here. You know, let's go out pragmatically to begin with. I can't imagine they're going to go gung-ho, maybe at any point.
Well, Scotland were absolutely appalling in Dublin. Like,
it's a very different team when you look at how they played during the week.
Totally. Like, insipid, like, couldn't get anything going. The only player for me that day who tried a bit of something was Scott McTominay, and he gave the ball away a lot. But McTominay's had a brilliant start to the season, so I do fear a bit of Scottish retribution here. And that Ireland will, I don't think it's the type of team that will go in thinking, same again, lads. I think they'll be preparing for a Scottish reaction and hopefully have a counter plan to react to that. But I'm confident. I think Ireland will win by the odd goal.
Scotland are obviously sort of manning themselves against the complacency of having beaten Ukraine 3-0 and getting too carried away with themselves. That's why they're tapping into all that stuff that's the McGinn Braveheart stuff. A few comments coming in. Celtic on YouTube saying draw tomorrow and win on Tuesday. I think we'd all probably take that now, wouldn't we? We
need to win the two games, top the group, and that would be my ambition.
We could still finish second if other results go our way, essentially.
But I think,
as unlikely as they are.
Love a bit of permutation.
But this Ireland team is totally capable of winning both games, and that's where the ambition for me lies. Like,
ridiculous comments, says 95 iFox on YouTube. Not every game can be a referendum on the manager. It's a period of transition with young players. Results will be mixed. The main focus is Euro 2024 qualifying.
I agree, but we actually are living in a time now with the Republic of Ireland national team that every game is a referendum, and some referendums are more interesting than others. No matter what happens, it seems to be the case. We never have a game where the game, you take it for what it is and then you move on from it. There's always wider discussion about where Ireland are going after matches. And it would be great to get into a consistent level of form where that's not the case. And Chris Cal says, last comment on it, morning all, the performance against Scotland is more important for me as any team can lose a game. So, yeah, look, I mean, I think we're all in that boat until the game actually starts. And then you're like, you switch boats into the other boat. Totally. Righto, it is time to move on, but do keep those comments coming into us over the course of the morning. We're between now and 10. Loads to come on the show this morning, but right now we're moving to rugby. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you? Flying,
thanks, yeah. There's so much to chat about. We might start with Stuart Lancaster and the bombshell that dropped this week. Nothing confirmed just yet. By all accounts, he's to jump on a Zoom with the owner and the current head coach at Racing at some point over the weekend. And perhaps after all of that, he'll be handing in his notice to leave, to spend the rest of the season, obviously, and leave at that point. What's your assessment of Lancaster's, the impact of Lancaster leaving on Leinster would be?
I think Leo Cullen summed it up yesterday. When you're in Leinster's position, there's always going to be somebody kind of hovering around, looking at their coaches, looking at possibly some of their players as well. I know that the players probably don't move that much, and particularly the Irish guys, but their success in recent years and what he's done with Leinster has obviously attracted a lot of clubs, and this is not the first time it's come up about Stuart Lancaster possibly being wanted by somebody else. It did a couple of years ago with Australia. There was talks that he may take that job and that they were interested. I think any club would be interested in him, given what he's done with Leinster and obviously what you hear about what the players speak about him. So you think back to the situation in 2015 with England, and the way that ended so disappointingly. And I ended up interviewing him last year, and he constantly brings that up, how it was obviously part and parcel of coaching and setbacks and disappointments, but it still hurts him a lot. I think Leinster has obviously been a real refreshment for him. He's enjoyed working with a very elite group of players and had brilliant success, I think, and he takes the disappointment badly as well. I think last year's Champions Cup final loss and the semi-final in the URC was incredibly disappointing, obviously, for him. But I think it's kind of speculation, but it's not a surprise for me that, number one, that somebody would come looking for him, and that maybe if he does decide to go, that you couldn't argue against him maybe changing his position. Maybe I always thought he'd go back to international rugby, and that would be a big attraction. But Racing are a very big club, and financial package there would be very, very strong as well. So and for him to kind of take sole control of a team, it wouldn't surprise me if that happens again. So it's down to his success and Leinster's success, and it's obviously, he hasn't been offered or given a contract extension, I don't think, or he obviously hasn't been in a position to refuse that. So maybe Leinster will offer that contract, and it might not happen, but it's certainly big news.
If you're there's two aspects to it, and so the first one on that exact point, Quinny. If you're the IRFU / Leinster looking at all this unfolding, is there an opportunity now to go, listen, it's Friday, he's going to be having these Zooms over the weekend, let's get in contact, let's try to firm something up here, let's get a counter offer? Would you be pushing the boat out? Is he that important to make sure that he's locked down?
Well, I think it's he is incredibly important to Leinster, and has done a great job. But I presume his agent would have, you have agents for these things, and they have conversations. So sometimes, just look at Leo Cullen's situation himself, signing a 1-year deal, and he's done that for a couple of years. Sometimes people are pretty relaxed about not kind of about getting to this time of year, and traditionally this is when players start signing contracts for if they're up the following season, and it's the same for coaches. It's not like soccer in the Premiership where you're a year and a half out and you're signing new contracts. I suppose that's because they get into that free contract situation. They can move for nothing, and there's a big financial implication. But I think let's not be naive, Adrian, to think that Leinster or the RFU, there hasn't been discussions about this. They wouldn't just be blindsided with this situation. So we don't know the exact details there. I'm sure that if Stuart Lancaster wants to extend his contract, I'm sure the RFU and Leinster would be very happy to do that, unless there's some sort of ambition for change and stuff like that. So I would. Maybe they've got to, if Leinster really want him to stay, they've got to get on it now a bit more aggressively, I would imagine.
Johnny Sexton obviously retires, or possibly retires, depending on how much you believe what Leo Cullen was saying the other week at the end of this, at the end of the World Cup. It seems like he's a guy obviously who had a big reputation early in his career for being a bit cranky with teammates and a bit of a barker around the pitch, but that over the last number of years he's morphed into a slightly different personality that might be more aligned with, let's say, a senior coaching role at a club. Is there any possibility that once he hangs up the boots, that a position becomes available? He knows the culture, he's driven the culture between himself and Cullen and Lancaster over the last number of years, that he'd be an ideal fit in so many ways.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. I was having a conversation with someone the other day about coaching, and look, a lot of good players make very good coaches, but some good players don't make good coaches. So
are you thinking he wouldn't?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that it doesn't necessarily mean it's always a risk for any player coming out of the game, no matter how good they are, going straight into coach a team, because of the familiarity, the lack of experience. It's a different type of role. some players can do it. You know, Anthony Foley did it in Munster. He came straight out practically. He actually went in with the academy and the A team for a year or two. Rog obviously went off to France. Some people do it. You know, Sean O'Brien has come out of London Irish. He's gone in, as a coach for Leinster. But for someone like Johnny to step into the Stuart Lancaster role, could he do it? Of course he could do it. I think he's practically, similar to Ronan O'Gara when he was at Munster. He's coaching a lot of that stuff anyway, and he's stuck in the middle of a lot of the sessions and the vocal stuff and in those sessions and the way the team trained. So of course he could do it, but there is always a risk because of that familiarity, and one day being a player and the next day being a head coach. I'm not saying it can't be done, but again, it's kind of like hypothetical because you're kind of thinking, Leinster make a decision on this. It's if Stuart Lancaster leaves, would Johnny Sexton be someone that could step straight in there? I've no doubt he could. It depends what the player wants himself. Maybe he'll want to do something different. But sometimes these opportunities happen in your life where something happens for a reason, and there is an opportunity. And if he was retiring and stepped straight into that role, I'm sure it would be, it could really work for both the club and the player. But undoubtedly he you look at Draco. I always thought Draco would be a coach and could be a coach, and Paul didn't do it for a couple of years, and after he retired, and he's making a great job of it now. So it just depends what the individual wants themselves. Do they want to break from that environment and go somewhere else, or possibly go straight into it? But I think the transition would be pretty seamless as regards, knowing the culture, as you say, and that's really important, and knowing the standards. But when you're friends with guys and close to fellas that close, it can sometimes be risky.
Yeah. When we look at the action, we've obviously at last some games to talk about as well. Quinny, obviously round one of the URC done. Ulster, I presume, probably the only one that are really satisfied after the opening weekend. How impressed with Ulster were you? Kind of double-edged sword. Impressed with Ulster, but disappointed with Connacht. I think Ulster certainly look, and they've shown it in the last number of years, and we've consistently been speaking about their consistency and being able to back it up in really big games. They're capable of that kind of performance against anybody in Belfast. And when I was talking to Gerard Monday morning about it, I think I was thinking afterwards, was I a bit harsh on Connacht, because the other provinces could go to Belfast and struggle there when they kind of get their mojo going and they get in the front foot and they get tempo in their game. They can do that kind of stuff to teams. They're capable of it. They're, when they get their tails up, they're very, very dangerous. And when you look at where they finished the season, I think they would have probably, beating Munster convincingly in that quarter-final. They should have beaten the Stormers probably in. I think they should have late try in the semi-final. They could have easily been in a final of the URC. As always, the challenge for them is up front, and that physicality and that physical battle. But it's very early days for all these teams, Adrian. I think Dan McFarlane certainly be really pleased with the start. I think it was great to see Luke Marshall back as well. He's had such a stop-start couple of seasons with injuries. Stuart McCluskey was brilliant. Nathan Doak, I think, is really maturing as a player. And, they've got a lot of young players coming through. Balakoon is back. Jacob Stockdale had a few brilliant touches. So if their forwards deliver on a consistent basis to the backline that they have a lot of dangerous players out wide. And obviously it's going to be a different challenge from this week going to the Scarlets, who themselves, there's some similarities about, the type of game that they're capable of playing, both sides, scoring a lot of tries, but conceding scores as well. And, so I think it was a really good start for them, definitely, in an inter-pro game where Connacht have gone there in a couple of times in the last couple of seasons and won. So I think certainly, they can build a bit of momentum from this and, be confident going over to Wales at the weekend.
You mentioned Connacht there. Do you give them any hope over the next couple of weeks? Because obviously they have to go to South Africa. They come back. They have quite horrendous run of fixtures in general, and from the last game, I don't know, it didn't put a lot of faith in what you might get out of them. And how do you come back from that start of a season as well if it does go as badly as it looks like it might?
Yeah, it's very difficult for them, and you think confidence wise. Look, it was always going to be difficult start for them going to Belfast, and it's a really tough start for them. You know, having to go to Belfast, play Ulster, and then go to South Africa for a couple of weeks. But sometimes, and I listened to Peter Wilkins talking about it the other day, and Andy Friend, you know, they have an opportunity maybe to galvanise themselves. The South African teams at the moment will be missing some of their Springbok players. Obviously, that's a little bit different from the second half of last season when all the South African teams were very, very strong and they had all those international players with them. So, yeah, I think they've got to kind of pull together. Connacht's, you know, play a really good brand of rugby and they're very exciting to watch. But they've got to get their fundamentals right. They're particularly scrum line out and that breakdown. And, you know, they struggled last week at the breakdown and they were physically kind of out-muscled. Ulster did a lot of damage with their maul. So, you know, for Peter Wilkins and Andy Friend, they have a couple of players coming back that'll certainly boost them. They have their, you know, emerging Ireland players who will join up with Ireland in South Africa. So at least they get to play with them as well. So I think they have a chance, certainly have a chance. But, you know, it'd be great for them if they can win one of the games in the next 2 weeks. But, you know, against the Stormers tomorrow, I think it's you know, they need to get something out of that. If they don't get the result, they need to play well. They need to get a little bit of confidence built up again and a bit of a feel-good factor back within the team and not panic. But, you know, we know these games, they can run away from you very quickly. You know, you suddenly could be 6 or 7 games in and Connacht are scrambling for a win. They want to get into Europe and want to be in the playoffs as well. So next couple of weeks are really vital for them for sure.
You could say some of the same stuff about Munster, and we'll come to the activity on the pitch in just a minute, Quinny, but definitely wanted to mention as well that the Irish Independent have been reporting today that Chris Farrell has stepped away from Munster. It's a very serious issue. To quote some of the piece here by Shane Phelan in the paper this morning, that he's saying that they've had a statement from Munster confirming that Chris Farrell will not be involved with the team while French legal process is ongoing. And this all relates to, as they say, his involvement with Munster rugby, stepping away from that after cases against him and 4 other rugby players were referred to a French criminal court following allegations that a young woman was raped. He isn't accused of rape but is facing an accusation of not stopping a crime along with another player. And then there are 4 other players who are facing more serious allegations. So with all that in the mix, as I said, Munster Rugby have issued a statement. They say that Munster Rugby and Chris Farrell have agreed that with immediate effect he'll be stepping back from his involvement with the Munster squad while legal proceedings in France concerning his alleged involvement as a witness to an alleged crime in 2017 are ongoing. As this is an active legal matter before the French courts, we've no further comment. So that's the statement given to the Irish Independent from Munster. It's a very serious matter and a very straightforward set of events in terms of him stepping away, Quinny.
It is, and it's obviously pretty alarming situation for everybody involved. We've got to be very careful of what we say here. I think I just read about that last night. I was shocked. Because I know he was questioned a couple of years in that, and years ago when that happened, and didn't have any investigate or didn't have any allegation of being involved in it at the time. But so I'm a bit shocked that this has come out. I know that it comes from an investigation last year where it's a separate investigation where he's alleged to have not stopped a crime. So I don't understand enough about the situation, but when the trial will be, how long he'll be out of rugby, and it's obviously merited a situation that this could go on for a while and that he could have a problem here, or he's got to defend himself in whatever way his legal team see fit. So It's obviously alarming news, to say the least, that this situation has cropped up. And again, I just saw it late last night, so I don't know. I didn't. I'm going to try and find out more. Obviously, how long when is the trial going to be? How long is he going to be out of rugby? But obviously, we've got to. There's a lot of people involved in this, and it's certainly a sensitive situation. So, I don't know when the trial is going to be or when this is going to play out. But obviously, Munster have seen fit, and Chris Farrell has seen fit to say that this is a challenge going forward, and obviously he has something. He's got to defend himself, and that being in around the Munster club and playing matches is something that they don't see him capable of doing at the moment. Yeah,
and that is a reasonable stance, and we obviously have history in relation to this general topic matter on this island, so it's not as if it's brand new territory, and we shall follow it and report on it as events unfold, as you say, in terms of dates and that from the French courts. Talk to us about some of the aspects in relation to Connacht that you were talking about the scrums and the lineouts, and certainly in a Munster context against Cardiff last weekend, so stuff like missed tackles, maybe generally just not as sharp as you want. Obviously a lot of Ireland players to come back into the mix. How long before we can start critically analysing the Munster coaching ticket?
That's a really good question, Adrian, because I definitely think we have to, and Munster fans alike, have to be patient. This is going to take a little bit of time. I think to play with the type of tempo and energy that I think the new coaches want. I think there's a complete change in the way they want to play, and I think we saw glimpses of that last week in their kicking game, in their shape that they were trying to achieve throughout the multi-phase, even our first and second phase, just the different lines of running and stuff like that. They got some of that stuff wrong. There's no doubt about it. Players in the backfield were getting isolated. Number of Munster players ahead of the ball carrier at times. And then they lost the breakdown. So I think there needs to be patience, and how long do we need that patience, I think was your question. I think you've got to see glimpses of improvement throughout, as you go on. So in other words, going to the Dragons at the weekend, the drop balls that we saw a lot of last weekend, they need to get that right and just protect the ball a little bit more, because aside from any sort of game plan changing stuff that's going on, simple catch pass has to be executed, and unfortunately last weekend they made the game difficult for themselves by turning the ball over themselves in crucial areas, and then in turn Cardiff put a lot of pressure on them in the second half and caused them issues at the breakdown. So if they look back at the video and they see that maybe there's 9 or 10 situations there where even 50% better in those situations, well, you never know, you might have got a try or two out of that. And so I think we've got to see an immediate improvement in the ball skills, just the catch pass stuff, and not to turn the ball over. The defensive stuff that you mentioned, I think that's just some shape. Look, Finian Wycherley, very, very powerful guy. He's a very physical player. On that first tackle on Max Llewellyn, he just doesn't hit and stick, I think, and Llewellyn does really well and gets away and scores the try. I think the other ones from the set piece, Alex Kendellen had a heavy knock a couple of minutes before that and looked dazed, to be honest, and Munster ended up taking him off shortly after that anyway. On another day, he's up 10 yards, closes that space, and that gap for Llewellyn again isn't there. And I think the last one is just, it's a 3-on-3, and I think it's poor defending. So they'd have been disappointed with the tries they conceded. But on the balance of play, Cardiff were probably the stronger side. And, if Munster got a win there, I think Cardiff would have been really, really disappointed in what they did. They probably had enough possession and pressure and moments in the game to win it. But Munster could have come out of that game with a win. I think they got themselves back into a great position. So there's something to build on there. They certainly have a lot to work on. And I think the patience is probably... You're probably looking at half a season, up to Christmas, with a view to, really going, God, that's absolutely brilliant, to change and what they're trying to do. It's going to take a little bit of time because their pre-season would have been pretty short. I think they had 2 breaks in that. integrating the players back in, lots of chopping and changing in pre-season. So, maybe we'll see some, positive steps in the next couple of weeks, but I think it's going to take a few months.
Yeah. One last one. We've one comment in from HC saying Rog for Leinster, which I think we've long established is probably not going to be all that likely. He is going to be serving a 6-week touchline ban. He disrespected the authority of a match official during the La Rochelle game against Lyon a couple of weeks ago. So he's got a few weeks to cool his jets, Quinny.
Is he getting an off the ball ban as well for a couple of weeks? Yeah, sure. Look, he's. He'll kill me for smiling about this, but that's what I did when I saw it. I knew he had something coming up, all right. But he's very emotional, and I think maybe it's not for me to tell him what to do, but he's got to probably be a little bit more careful, because I think opposition coaches will try and rile him as well. He had that issue with Urias, the Bordeaux coach, last year, and I think we all get frustrated with referees at times, and when he's down close to the touchline like that, and some of the decisions can be baffling, but he's probably got to temper his emotion a little bit better. But he's probably, is he banned now from actually going to the games?
Just touchline.
He's got to be up in the touchline ban, so he's got to be up in the stands. So yeah, he'll have a few weeks to cool off. So
yeah, we'll probably catch up with him at some point over the next few weeks. Quinny, thanks a million.
Cheers. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks a lot. It's gone 8:15. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTBAM, and a reminder that Braeburn Coffee proudly display they're our official coffee partner right here at OTB, and each week we're giving one lucky viewer a €100 voucher to spend on some Braeburn coffee goodness at an Applegreen store near you, and it is good stuff. I can assure you that. To enter, you can check out our Off the Ball Twitter account. And you'll see all the details up there. You just like and retweet our Braeburn competition post, and you'll be in the draw. Braeburn Coffee never compromises on quality or taste to give you the best on-the-go coffee experience on the road, and it's available at an Applegreen near you today. Okay, it is 17 minutes past 8. It's Friday morning. We've loads still to come. We're going to be talking football with Tom English a little bit later on, ahead of the Ireland-Scotland game, obviously, tomorrow night. But after the break, we're going to be joined by the Kerry legend Kieran Donaghy in studio to chat about a huge international basketball event coming to Dublin this winter. It's the MAC Dublin Basketball Challenge. And before all of that, Leo Cullen talking about those strong links between Stuart Lancaster and Racing.
Well, we talk all the time, yeah, always during this season. So, you think you're coming to this start of the season, but everyone's always making plans for the future, and that's players and staff, backroom team as well. So, it's like the silly season is there always, up until a point where things get finalised. So we're going to be in this period of speculation, shall we say. And we can't comment on other people's speculation, you know what I mean? So, but there's always these pieces going on in the background. We're very lucky that we've got a very strong group, some great people in our building. And that's credits a lot of the work that goes on over the last number of years. So we're very lucky in that regard. The reality is, though, there's lots of other clubs that look at some of the talent, whether that's players or coaches. And that's something that we have to deal with all the time. And people make different decisions at different stages. So, but that's we're trying to talk about one person specifically, who's been amazing since he's come into the group. Yeah, but that's, we're just commenting on speculation. So it's how long have we got here? We just deal with all these cases individually. Just the nature of it, generally people are signing not much longer than 2 years. So it's almost like every year there's 50% of your coaching and playing roster are off contract. So you just got to go through with that. So, that's part of the evolution of the team. It never stays the same. We say it towards the end of every season where you're coming to the end of a season, but that group is never going to be the same again. If you think Dennis Leamy's now down coaching in Munster, Felipe you would have seen involved with Argentina during Rugby Championship, and there's other players have already started their careers in other teams. A few lads playing for Connacht up in Ravenhill last week. A couple of lads you've seen run out in extra jerseys as well. So that's just the part and parcel of the business that we're in.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
David Beckham gave me such a boost this week. You know when you see a master at their craft? Every celebrity in Britain, their thought on Thursday and Friday will be, how do we skip the queue?
Yeah.
How do we skip the queue? Beckham just flipped that on his head.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
Celebrate European Week of Sport this September at the Be Active Festival. An action-packed day out for the whole family at Sport Ireland Campus, Blanchardstown. Come and try new sports, fitness challenges and skill tests at Ireland's biggest sporting festival. Meet sporting legends. Check out the Inflatable Zone, Village Food Market and much more. There's something for everyone at the Be Active Festival. Saturday, September 24th at Sport Ireland Campus, Blanchardstown. Book your tickets now at beactivefestival.ie.
If your business relies on a van, that wouldn't sound good. But this does. Get up to 75% off van insurance. Now available in FBD branches nationwide. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. 75% no claims discount based on 5 years claims free. Available on new van policies. Used for farm or business purposes. Terms and conditions apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
8:20. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, and thanks a million for joining us. Do keep your comments coming in. Delighted to say that we're joined in studio by two very special guests. It's all ahead of the Dublin Basketball Challenge. It's coming to the National Basketball Arena in November. Rich Esner, who's the MAC Commissioner and all-round Irish sporting legend, Kieran Donaghy. You're very welcome to the studio, lads.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
Thanks a million for coming in. Rich, tell us, for the uneducated like myself, what's it all about?
Well, we're coming in town here with 8 basketball teams from the United States, Division I NCAA programs, 4 men's, 4 women's from the MAC, and then we play the Atlantic Sun teams, which are a competitor conference of ours located in the southeast. They're mostly Florida and as far west as Arkansas. So it's a preseason tournament. We do a lot of these in the States. You got to get your team ready for conference play, and so this is an opportunity to bring our athletes over to Dublin. Get them. Many of them have never traveled before. They're all 18 to 23-year-olds, and it gives them that international flavor. And hopefully, they do some good things here with the children in the area, and encourage them to stay involved with sports and education.
And there's 2 games on the Saturday, 2 games on the Sunday. It's men's and it's women's, and it's live on ESPN. It's a deal. It's a big deal.
We've been here with our friends from ESPN for the last 3 days. Michelangelo's traveling with me, and we just had a site visit and did all the work, preparation for the broadcast. Yeah, so we'll be live. Primarily on ESPN Plus and 3. I don't know how familiar you are with the networks here, but those are both digital networks, and they have about 34 million homes that watch them regularly. So it'll be a lot of exposure for the teams, and more importantly, also for Dublin, because as you know, sports tourism is becoming a big economic driver, and that's part of the reason why you see people putting on these events.
Yeah.
What's the attraction of bringing it over to Dublin? Like, why was this the place that you picked if you could go to any European city?
Well, I'm from the Northeast. About 1 out of every 3 people has Irish blood in them, so I have my mother-in-law is an O'Callaghan from Cork, so, we have ties, and like myself, a lot of the coaches and players do as well. So, and our schools are rooted in this area. Iona College is one of our schools. We have Manhattan College. So they're all pretty well known. Manhattan College is where they do the Gaelic football in the States. So, we have a lot of ties. So it is attractive. And
the Irish welcome too, Rich.
It is indeed.
You like that Irish welcome?
I have to do my accent when you say it. Not when you're recording.
You can save that for when the ESPN lads are in. How excited should we be about it, Kieran? Give us a bit of a sense of what we can expect in terms of the play.
Well, Rich and Garrett Maguire and Mark Mulholland, who I played with on my Irish national team when I was 16 and 17, they had 2 of these events in Belfast that I was a part of in 2017 and 18, and they were unbelievable events. It's just the level of basketball,
it's a pre-season tournament, but it counts on their record. So like they're coming over here, and it's the beautiful thing about college sport, much more than what we'd probably watch more of, which would be maybe NFL, NBA. But I would always watch the college basketball as my number one sport in America, because these kids are out here. There's no hidden agendas. They're playing for their college. They're playing for their scholarship that they've been offered. And it's do or die basketball. If there's a loose ball on the floor, NBA game, regular season, fellas will look at it. Here you're going to have people diving into the crowd trying to save the ball. It's a great event. It's really well run. Lovely as a dad of 3 girls, as a proud girl dad, to see 4 ladies teams over here this year. So there's 4 sessions, 2 sessions a day. And you get to see a men's and a women's game. There's a 50-piece marching band that's going to be over. So you've been to the American sports. They'll have the trumpets. They'll have the place rocking. The National Arena is a class venue, really intimate venue. It's going to be packed on all 2 days, and it's just a great level of basketball. And lucky to be having it coming here. Like, I've been a kid watching ESPN, watching the classics in Hawaii and all these places that they're on. So to have it coming to Belfast was lovely, but to bring it here to Dublin is amazing. And there's an event in London the week after, all through the Inspire Sports. So it's a really good event if you're a kid. And basketball is so popular now as well, Adrian. You know it. When I was on the Kerry team first, it was kind of nearly looked down people's noses because I was a basketballer / but now, like, every Gaelic dressing room, every footballer, everybody knows about LeBron. They're getting the stuff through their phones every morning. Basketball's growing massively in the country. You see it in our leagues, how competitive they've got over here, and this is a lovely tie-in for it. Yeah, well, the full court press has suddenly become a GAA expression, not a basketball expression. It's definitely adopted that exactly. So Rich, the steps for the kids that are coming over here in terms of their ambition, obviously, is getting into the NBA, WNBA. Is that? And how I think you do see that a little bit, Adrian. But there are also it's very important in our league that they get educated and get a degree, because frankly, only a handful of athletes in our country get into the NBA every year, and we're not at that level typically. We send a lot of players into the European leagues, and that's where you'll see them end up. So no, for us, it's really about getting an education and getting an opportunity to play college ball, and then if something happens where they can stay and play further in Europe, it's great. And that's one of the reasons I got involved, is because when I first met Gareth McGuire about 7 years ago, I came over to check on some of our Victory Scholars, and they were athletes that were placed in any number of the schools, including Trinity. And so we did a little tour, and as we were driving across the country, I said, Gareth, you should really think about doing one of these preseason events. It would really be a great cornerstone for you to have, and then build your regular season competitions afterwards. So that was really the germination of that particular idea. And we've done a lot of these events in the States too. We run one at Thanksgiving time in Orlando. It's called the Orlando Classic. It's a real big event at a much higher level. But this is going to be a great event. You're going to like to see the women play as well as the men. Or one of the women's team, Marist College, went to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournaments. So, they're pretty good teams. And, of course, my alma mater, St. Peter's University, they went to the Elite 8 last year in the NCAA. So that was a big moment for me and the MAC. So great times. Yeah, and 4 games on each day. I totally undersold it earlier on. There's full value for your 25 quid, Rich. This is inspiresports.com, by the way, if people want to go along and get tickets. You mentioned about getting into the community. Is that part of the remit, that there's an opportunity to engage the local community to get on that? Yes, indeed. Kieran, you want to talk about that a little? Yeah, the Victory Scholars that Rich said that he came over to keep an eye on 6 or 7 years ago, they play in the Irish Super League, the Division 1 League in Ireland. But not only do they play with their teams and they train with them at the weekend, but they also go to the colleges to do their masters. But then they really get out in the community, and that's what Mark and Garrett have really emphasised, is getting them out there, inspiring kids through sport, which is the big message. But obviously, basketball being the sport is key. It's such a good sport for boys and girls, and really easy to kind of, I think, for a kid, to throw a ball up and see it go through a hoop, it's very addictive, very quick, and it's a sport that you can play all year round. It's not weather dependent. You're indoor, you're warm. thing I like about it most.
That's why I like it the most.
Yeah, you used to just rock up and put on your shorts, and you're not going to be out there freezing like I would be in a football pitch some days, or getting sleet slapping across my face sideways. But yeah, they do unbelievable work in the communities. I've seen it firsthand. I've been in Belfast, seen the work they've done there on both sides of the border, and they're absolutely brilliant ambassadors for the game, and they're great kids. Rich, like from my interactions with them, they come over here to really, their remit is really trying to better themselves, but trying to enforce in the community about how important sport is, and where sport maybe has taken them from where they were to where they are now, and where they could go. And sport has opened so many doors for me, basketball and football, from just dedicating myself to it. And I guess these guys' messages to the young kids around Ireland is, listen, if you're struggling, you're not finding your way, invest into sport, and it can bring you in a really good way. It shows you how it involves you in teamwork. You know, every business in the world is based around teamwork, and no better way to show that through sport. So, but it's a great event. Like the games, the level of the basketball, the atmosphere that will be created in the arena in a few weeks' time. That's what it's about. That's why I'll be looking forward to bringing my girls up to it. And I know there was a lot of people came from Tralee up to Belfast for the last one, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them going to Dublin to see that level of basketball. We're a basketball mad country, and to have this coming to our doorstep is a huge opportunity, and I can't wait for the 2 days and the buzz that'll be around it.
Yeah, and the 8 schools that are here, they'll all do community engagement pieces. They're going to visit the schools, do a talk about staying in school, getting educated, as well as playing sports. So they're all committed to doing that. And then on the Friday morning sessions over at the arena, we're going to have Kids Day, where basically we're going to be bringing in busloads of the young people a lot of them from disadvantaged areas. Will be able to come in and see probably the first basketball game in person. So that's the kind of commitment we've made, the teams have made, and it's very common in the United States to see this kind of involvement by the athletes. They're really very sincere, and it's not just basketball. The MAC runs 22 sports championships, for, across the board. So they're all involved on our campuses and in our communities.
If like to get I've spoken about this before on the show, but my earliest buzz of a game really was the time where Tralee won the league in '96 in Tralee, and it was the complex, and it was a packed house. And the thing I remember most about it was, and the Americans have taken this to another level in terms of putting on a show for people, but this is what the kids are going to get that Friday that they come, and obviously then Saturday is going to be jammed as well. But going to a game, the lights shut off in the Tralee Sports Complex, how they did it back in the day without the mobile, but the lights shut out, the spotlight came on the middle of the floor, the Eye of the Tiger came on, the players came running out with socks, throwing stuff into the crowd. We just, from that moment, just completely hooked on the game. But that was a huge part of it. So what Rich is saying there with these kids that are going to come down on the Friday, like they're going to be in there and they should be going away going, Mom, can we get a basketball? Where's the closest hoop? And that's what you want. Yeah. You want them to go down that road rather than a road that's, that we don't want our kids going down. So that's what they're trying to do here.
Okay, well, inspiresports.com if people want to go along and get tickets. As you said, games on the Friday and the Saturday, 4 games a day. We'll get the information right eventually, and people can go along and get their tickets for it up there. Nearly 40 years young. You're still at it?
Yeah, still at it, yeah.
What are you still at? You're going.
Don't tell the wife, but I'm back playing football and with the club, and getting ready for pre-season now. Our league is starting in 2 weeks with a local derby against Killorglin in a packed Tralee Sports Complex that they seem to always match us up in the first day of the season, because I think they know they'll have a rip-roar in the complex in Tralee. So we're all systems to the pump there. For us, we did the double last year, so Jim Garvey, our sponsor, we promised him we'd get the cup maybe at the start when he came in sponsorship, but there's 6 years gone. We finally got it last year, but unfortunately now he's kind of putting the pressure on to make sure we go and do back-to-backs, and I'm kind of like going, it's kind of mightn't work that way, but we got a great squad. Owen Quigley is on the Irish national team. He's with us. Daniel Jokubaitis from Lithuania, who's been in Tralee, who's adopted Tralee guy. He's been there for 4 years now. Myself and Fergal O'Sullivan are the 2 elder statesmen. We're back, but we've got a host of new young guys coming in. including an Irish international. Ivers, he's only 17, but an unbelievable athlete. So we've got a lovely core group there that we've had in Tralee, full of kind of Tralee kids, and obviously we'll have our pros. We've got an American Indre Jackson class player, actually played in the league last year with a team in Galway called Marina. And yeah, we've got some European guys then as well. We've got a big guy who's got the same second name as the league MVP in the NBA, Jokic, so we're calling him the Joker, even though we don't know how funny he is yet, but he's got that nickname.
Hope he likes that name.
Yeah, and we got a guy from Sweden, Mitch. So like, yeah, we're really looking forward to the year ahead, and yeah, it's 2 weeks and it's going to be kicking off, and it'll be all systems to the pump, and a little championship game on Sunday with the Stacks, so getting ready for that as well. So yeah, busy at the moment.
You're regular Tom Brady over here.
Well, no. I don't have 6'7" guys standing in front of me, Rich.
I think Rich, you've nailed him there. I think that's whatever about what your other half is saying to you. What's the body saying to you about all this activity?
The body isn't bad. The body isn't bad. So I was back pre-season with the basketball maybe 6-7 weeks ago. Not making all the sessions because we're busy with my job as well. So, but we're into the kind of the do or die stuff now in the championship in Kerry. So it's all hands to the pump. We've unfortunately picked up a lot of injuries from having won the county championship last year. We played our last game in the club championship against the Crokes, so we're coming off the pitch, and an old fella said to me, "We're missing 8 from the county final team. You're one of them." He says, "You've no excuse, but we've 7 injuries." And I was kind of like going back in the car going, 7 injuries from our starting team last year. So I felt that maybe I owed it to the group to go back and help with training, because I was in there doing a bit of coaching. So I said, look, I might as well be out there galloping around and trying to help them that way. So yeah, I've had a good kind of 5 or 6 weeks and starting to feel a bit better about myself on the pitch, because I'd thrown away all my gloves and a lot of my gear, and kind of I was well on the way to not playing anymore. But look, it's enjoyable. They're my own people. The club is very important to me, and probably haven't done what we did last year. I feel like it's kind of important to go back and try and help them out with the amount of injuries we have. Yeah,
it's the old
credit to you.
Yeah,
that you can do that. And
yeah, I'll do what I can, Rich, but pretty soon I won't be able to.
I'm pushing 70, so I don't know.
You have a few minutes in, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm very impressed.
The old fella doesn't know what he's set in training.
Yeah.
So it's go back and give it one last bash. Is that the
yeah, exactly. So you know, I've been playing 20 years with the club now at senior level, so it's you know, I've come on the last 2 games with 10 minutes to go, and that probably will be my role. But with the way the injuries are going, that could change. So we've been unlucky. Joe O'Connor, our Kerry player, who's going to make a big push with Kerry this year, unfortunately he's had a bad knee injury, so he'd be a really big loss to us. And we lost our up and coming corner forward, Keane Purcell, the last day with a similar injury. So it's just a bit of bad luck, kind of these freak injuries that happen. The game is a high contact game, as we know, and just going through a bit of a run of it now, but trying to get fellas back. Our captain Dylan Casey from last year is trying to come back. So yeah, we're just trying to kind of get the pieces together. We've our last group game. We won our first 2, so we're into a quarter final. So this last group game on Sunday against Mid Kerry will decide who's top and bottom, I think. So it's a big game in that respect, and then you're into win or go home stuff after that. You're into quarter final, and obviously, look, you know, there's a lot of good teams in the competition at the moment, including East Kerry, who are locked and loaded to go on and push for it.
Very impressive looking, yeah.
Yeah, they're impressive looking. Yeah, they're a good team.
Thing with basketball too is you can build a team around a few players. It's not like football. And
need a bit of luck. Need a bit of luck with.
It was interesting that you mentioned that, because we had this week where Dublin announced that McCaffrey and Mannion were coming back, and everyone was like, "Oh, are the Dubs now the favourites for the All Ireland next year? Kerry, are they behind?" And then Kerry the next day were like, "Aha! But we've committed Tally, and he's going to stay around in the coaching." And it felt like a bit of a one-upmanship. How important was it that Kerry actually got him to stay for?
Yeah, I think it was important because his role, along with Jack and what they did this year was huge, Kathleen, in terms of, like, you know, how solid they were defensively. The amount of goals they conceded both in league and championship was really good. I think they got the middle of their defence going really strong with Jason Foley at fullback and Tyg Morley at 6. You know, you've Tom Sullivan, who's been an all-star a number of times. You've him knocking around at the left corner as well, and really attacking. So Paddy obviously coming from Tyrone, and I wouldn't pigeonhole him into being a defensive coach from who I've talked to. He's a really good all-round coach, so but I know that would have been a focus point of him going in there to solidify Kerry, and I think he did that last year. And obviously, when you have a guy who comes in along with the manager as a player, when you're looking at that group and you're going to win the All-Ireland, all you want as a player is nothing, maybe someone to come in, but you don't want to lose anybody off that group. So it's an important move by Kerry to make that happen. And I know Jack would have been very keen that after the job they did. So it's a big one that they got him to stay, yeah.
And with the two lads that Kathleen has mentioned, everybody's kind of thinking now, like the race was pretty even anyway, but the two lads coming back nearly tips the balance in Dublin's favour. Although I saw Colin Keys writing a piece during the week and he was saying that this is exactly what Kerry need. Those two lads back in the Dublin team, no complacency now about Kerry. They have their target. It's like everybody's talking up the Dubs and we're going to come and get you. Suddenly they've talked themselves into an underdog position almost.
Yeah, they have, yeah. Look, it's big by Dublin, no doubt, to get the boys back, and they're only 30 years of age. They're still probably coming into their prime, and they're two unbelievable players. So that'll really strengthen them for Dublin. They'll look at the game last year against Kerry without Con and how close that game was. And all of a sudden, if you throw those three rockets into the middle of it, into the middle of that squad, it'll bring them on hugely. But yeah, I don't think there would have been much complacency in Kerry with Jack involved. I think I would say he'd be strong in trying to do a back-to-back. He was unlucky in 2005 when Tyrone beat us in a cracking final, and he won at 06 and he was gone, and then he came back in 2009 and won it, and then we had the disappointment in 2010 against Down. So I'm sure Jack would like to kind of do a back-to-back. When you see what Dublin did with getting 6 in a row, back-to-back doesn't seem so significant, but I'm sure the Kerry team and them fellas, I don't think they would have been complacent, but it's no doubt it sharpened the focus of not only Kerry but everybody else to make sure that they come back and hitting the ground running, because Dublin will be really strong next year, and if they shoot into favourites, there'll be no one saying that they shouldn't be. It's them. You're talking about 2 All-Stars. You're talking about players that have been nominated for Player of the Year, and they will improve them big time. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible players.
Repeating in any sport's so hard to.
It's yeah, exactly.
It sounds easy. It's not.
Yeah, you think you've got the team, but see, there's hunger levels, there's ambition levels, there's egos come into the dressing room. There's all that kind of stuff, and it's hard to do it back to back. And that's why you look at what Dublin did, getting the 6 was incredible, really, truly incredible.
How do you reflect on 2022 yourself? Like, it's from an Armagh point of view, I can see that you'd leave it going, we're just that close, but also like the positivity of running. I mean, there was literally nothing between yourselves and Galway.
Yeah, like the boys did really well. Like, that was their first big championship game in Croke Park, and to go down there and put on that kind of a show when the game didn't go great for us. We started well, we went through a very bad lull before half time, and again midway through the second half, and then we were a bit unfortunate with Greg McCabe, who went out to try and get a good shoulder and a turnover, and was just a bit unfortunate that the speed the both players were going at, that there was a slight collision with the heads, and a tough call, but by the letter of the law, the ref was right in his call, given the red, even though when you looked at it live you'd be like, oh, great hit, but when you slow it down, and obviously we can't ref games by slowing them down on cameras, but the call was right in the end. You have to, when you go in for your shoulder, you have to watch where your head is going. So it was a bit unlucky, but to lose a player like Greg, who's so important for us, rattled us for a big period in that second half. But tremendous credit goes to the players for it was done. Like, we were 6 points down when the game was clinched, injury time. And just a refusal to quit by the lads. There was no science behind it. It was solely players not giving up, and it shows a great amount about that group that they were able to come back like that and force extra time, and not only force extra time, but to play well then in extra time and really look good. But I think the Killian McDade performance in that second period of extra time was incredible. His goal, his powerful running. That ignited him back into the game, and then he got the point when we were a point ahead to bring it to the penalty shootout. Like, that point in the 122nd minute when your legs are gone and you're rampaging through 3 or 4 orange jerseys, and you're off to your right, which is a hard kick into the hill end, and a really great score to get them the momentum nearly going into the penalties. The way when you come back, if you get a last minute goal, it takes you into penalties, everybody's feeling a bit better. and they went down, and a tough situation for everybody involved. And I did it the year before at the club. It's a tough place to be when it's not something you're used to, when you're standing with 5 of your brothers that you've trained with all year, and you've 30 of your pals behind you looking on, and you have to walk down in front of 80,000 and take this kick. So it was a tough way to go out as a group, but considering the disappointment after the Donegal Ulster Championship game, you know, the rest of the year, you know, our boys really played well and did well for themselves, and you know, you could feel the belief in the group growing as it was going on. So they'll take a lot from that, from sure. And they're a really good bunch of lads, and I was just disappointed for them that it would end like that in penalties. It was a hard one to go away from, because you're kind of going, are we better than them? Are we not better than them? We lost in penalties, but they just got the result. But Galway showed, how for real they are. The job they did in Derry was so impressive, and there were 68 minutes against Kerry, and you know, I'm looking up at the clock at that game, kind of going, this could go absolutely anyway, the way they were playing. Shane Walsh carried the can, obviously. Jason Foley did an incredible job, and Damien Comer, which was probably the winning of the game for Kerry, because if Comer had got loose or wriggled free for a few of those scores, it would have been a hard one for them to come back in. But that's how good Galway were. So good for our fellas to know how close they were.
I like how you negotiated your way around the passion on the sideline for the Armagh team as well, without fully engaging that one. Listen, I look forward to seeing you. 39-year-old Kieran Donaghy showing the Cliffords a thing or two, and the East might be at opposite ends of the pitch, but we'll be keeping an eye on it.
No pressure.
Thanks a million for coming in. Great to see you again. Rich, lovely to meet you, and best of luck with the event. We'll send out the details about how to get tickets for that on our social media accounts as well. So thanks a million for coming in. Fair play. Righto, it is 8:45. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM. We've still plenty of chat to come about Ireland-Scotland tomorrow night as well. Tom English will be with us in just a little bit. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs. For an effortless finish to your day, we're going to be live with Aisling from the Irish Open next, the KPMG Women's Irish Open. And first of all, here is Aisling talking to Leona Maguire, the star of the week, of course, who's well in contention at the top of the leaderboard. And a reminder that all the golf on Off the Ball this week in association with KPMG Women's Irish Open. Take a look.
Leona, you're just off the course. How are you feeling? 5 under at the minute, a score of 67. You're in a good place in the first day?
Yeah, nice. Always nice to start off with a good round, and got a few birdies out there. Made a few silly mistakes on the front nine, but overall pretty happy with my round.
On the first tee, it was a double bogey is what it came up for us, but then it was actually changed to a bogey in the end. Did you hear anything about that, or did you see anything along the way?
No, I mean, golf's hard enough without none more shots, so no, I mean, I didn't look at any leaderboards, I didn't look at anything all day, so I was just trying to shoot as low as I possibly could.
Yeah, you seem to really find your rhythm, especially maybe after the 10th hole. It was really solid, and you had 3 birdies then in the end.
Yeah, nice to finish with three in the last 4. There's some good chances sort of there on the last few holes, so you really want to take advantage of them, and some good momentum heading into tomorrow.
And how did you find the course? Were there holes in particular that were a bit tricky?
Yeah, I think the front nine was playing a touch trickier there sort of at the start. The 4 and 5 are probably 2 of the harder holes on the course, but no, I mean, there's a good mix of holes out there. There's some good chances which you have to take, and then there's a few trickier ones that pars a good score.
And the sun is beaming down at the minute. I know that helps that it wasn't lashing rain. I know it was this morning, but it cleared up just in time for when you teed off at about 5 to 1.
Yeah, I know, we were blessed. It got a little windy and a little gusty, which made it a little bit tricky around by the lake and stuff, but no, I mean, this is summer in Ireland in September, so we couldn't really ask for much more.
And talk to me about the crowd that followed you around the whole day. There was, I think, over 1,000 people that followed you around. It was just incredible to see.
Yeah, quite a bit more people I thought than there would be today, especially for a Thursday, so nice to see everybody out, and nice to have a few birdies for them to sort of entertain them a little bit.
You're feeling good going into the second day. What's the plan this evening? Will you do any putting, or is it just rest?
Go to the range, hit a couple of drives, didn't quite drive as well as I would have liked today, and yeah, bed early and up early again tomorrow.
Which was I happy.
There is Leona Maguire chatting to Aisling after a round yesterday, and Aisling is at Dromullen Castle for us all this week. Good morning to you, Aisling. Aisling, we can see you. You can't hear us. Is that Right, we'll come back to Aisling in just a moment's time because, as you can see, just need to get that line sorted, and we'll have a chat to Aisling about all things golf. 1,000 people following Leona around is amazing. It's great that the crowds have turned out, because we chatted about it on the show yesterday, but there's so much money, there's 3 million quid pumped into the course over the last few years, and the fact that it's back after a 10-year absence, and the fact that Leona was there and it looked like for a period maybe that wasn't going to happen, that's the ultimate result, and the fact that she's doing well, could be something special brewing down there this week.
Yeah, it's exciting, and like I'd actually known not all that much about it in the lead up, but I'd seen about whether Leona was going to be there, whether she wasn't going to be there, and I think the fact that it went quite close to the line, whether she was going to turn up, the fact that many people have still turned up to see her, and I saw like the photos you had of the course and the different bits that Aisling's been putting up.
Nathan's shot. Let's get that right. We gotta mention that as often as we can.
And even just the different bits that Aisling's been putting up on social media, it looks really good, and the first day seemed to go really well. It was an exciting tournament already. There was lots of moves and changes, so I think it's great for the sport here. It's great. I mean, it would be lovely if it became a much more regular event, and that even if it moved around Ireland a bit more and promoted women's golf here a bit more, because we do have these big names, and I think sometimes we don't appreciate that as much because they don't play here all that often. So, people aren't getting the opportunity to get up close and personal with them. So yeah, it looks like a great day. It's probably one of the few times I've ever actually thought to myself, I might go watch some golf.
Well, having no choice to watch some golf this week, Aisling, you're back.
I'm back. Can you hear me okay?
You are coming in loud and clear. Leona talking about 1,000 people following around. We've just been talking about everything in the melting pot brewing together nicely, and really well. Like we chatted about it yesterday, if she could just do well, just be thereabouts, and the crowds will come. So she's done her part of the bargain.
Yeah, the crowds were something else, Adrian. Like there was about 1,000 people, if not more, following it around, and it was a Thursday, during the week. So to see that many people, I think it says a lot of the amount of people we're going to see going into the weekend. And when she spoke to me there, she spoke about how shocked she was at the amount of people that there was, but obviously delighted to see that many people out. And I suppose at the start she had a bogey on the first tee, but she didn't let it affect her whatsoever, and then she birdied the third, and yeah, you could feel it, and you could hear the noise from the crowd here at Tramall and Castle. And then she just found her rhythm. I think she had like the super run on the 6th, 7th and 8th hole. She got 3 birdies in a row there. Really found her rhythm on the 10th, was really solid, and then birdied the 18th. So she was putting on a little bit of a show, a bit of entertainment for all those people that were going along with her. And yeah, she finds herself now tied 6th position, 5 under, and just 2 shots off the lead. So I think perfect position to be in going into day 2. And she just teed off there at 8:30, so she's already out on the course.
What are conditions like today? Because I know when we were down there, the rare occasion I can actually talk about having played the course, it was an amazing morning, and really lent itself to, according to the professionals anyway, an ability to score low. And the 2 pros that we played with were talking about, like, geez, but yeah, when you want to be getting out, they were looking at the weather forecast and trying to get out if you could when it was nice and dry. What's it like down there this morning?
Yeah, it's dry at the minute, because yesterday morning when I was speaking to you, it was bucketing down, and it continued to bucket down until about 11 o'clock, 10:30 yesterday. And Leona teed off at 5-1, so that was perfect for her, really. It had just stopped. It was still wet on the course, of course it was, but obviously not having that downpour would have definitely been ideal for her, because some of the girls that went out at 8:30, it was touch and go whether it was going to be delays or worse, having it cancelled. So thankfully that wasn't the case. And today at the minute it's dry, and I think they're expecting rain maybe around 4 or 5 o'clock. So at that point Leona would be finished up. So yeah, it looks like at the minute that the weather could be in her favour today.
Right, in her favour. Well, that would be another added incentive for people to get down there over the weekend as well. We've been following your progress on social media as well yesterday over the course of the day, and people can do that again today and over the weekend to exactly find out. Particularly, we're really obviously interested in how the Irish players are going on, and a bunch of amateurs as well trucking along nicely.
Yeah, there is indeed. Yeah, one in particular, 16-year-old Marina, Joyce Moreno. She started on the 10th hole yesterday, and she got a hole-in-one on the 13th. which was a par 3. So it was incredible stuff for her. There was great celebrations and cheers around that hole for her, because it was an unbelievable shot by her. And obviously to do it at 16 years of age out here among professionals. Her dad is from the north of Ireland. She is a Spanish-based golfer, but she is an Irish amateur, and she is definitely one to watch out for in the future. Her best finish, I suppose, this year, top 10 finish in the under-16 amateurs and European Young Masters. So definitely one to watch. And also Aileen Walsh, I mentioned her yesterday. She is an Irish international as well. She is leading in the amateurs here. At the moment, she is 1 under par with a score of 71, and she's 24 years old, a local school teacher here in Ennis. They gave her the week off to go and play, and she's doing really well out there, and she's loving all the crowds that are following around. So it was great to see them doing so well too.
That's great. And I know you were chatting as well to one of the English players who, it turns out, I think she was saying at the end she had some Irish links, who's right in the mix as well. Annabelle Dimmock.
Yeah, Annabelle, she is sitting in tied third position at the moment. So just give you a little overview, I suppose, of scoring. It's Lena Bockfist and Lena under with a score of 65. They had 9 birdies out there yesterday from Lena and 8 for Alexander, so it was really impressive stuff. And Annabelle, who you mentioned, she's along with Clara Spilkova from Czech Republic and Annalise Caudel of France. So they're in tied third position and just 1 shot off the lead. So it was a brilliant start for them, because they did have those difficult weather conditions. But I spoke to Annabelle and she talked to me all about the course, her Irish heritage, and just how difficult it was out there in the downpour. But you just have to put it to the back of your mind and play your own game.
Yeah, all right. Well, we will leave it there and keep an eye on things over the course of the afternoon as well. Thanks a million, Aisling.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Aisling O'Reilly there at Dromowen Castle Golf Club for the second day of the KPMG Women's Irish Open, and you can keep full track of that across Off the Ball channels over the course of the day. It's 5 to 9. We've Vic Akers still to come. Really interesting weekend of football for Arsenal. It's going to be a record-breaking weekend by all accounts with the North London Derby, and we will talk to him about that. Such an interesting character with an interesting story as well. So that is still to come. But at 5 to 9, it is time to turn our attention to the action at Hampden Park tomorrow. I'm delighted to say that Tom English, football writer, joins us on the line. Morning, Tom.
How you doing?
Good. I'm just reading a few of the back pages this morning about John McGinn, and he's given it all the Braveheart stuff about the defeat to Ireland earlier in the year, and how they need to set that right. It looks like it's just a matter of how many they're going to beat Ireland by, Tom.
Yeah, well, they weren't very brave of heart against Ireland in Dublin. It was a lamentable performance. I think what he was talking about there was that really affected this Scotland team. They knew they were taken to the cleaners by Ireland, and it was embarrassing for them. So I don't think anyone is thinking, although the result against Ukraine the other night was really good and the performance was excellent, I don't think anyone is taking this for granted at all.
No,
they've already been burnt very badly in Dublin, so I don't think they're going into this one lightly. I can guarantee you that.
They're on a similar-ish kind of trajectory of building themselves up almost on ourselves, and maybe no different either, almost in England in some ways, the sense of the jeopardy of these international windows in terms of the manager's position. And, post that Ireland loss, post the Ukraine loss, there seemed to be a bit of pressure building on Steve Clarke and whether he was up to the job or not. But Wednesday night has really, has Wednesday night changed the mood of a nation?
It has, yeah. Like the mood before the Ukraine game and before the Ireland game in the summer was very, very good. Scotland were on a really good run. Then they hit a major bump in the road. They threw in that performance against Ireland that no one saw coming. And it kind of shocked everybody that they were that bad. Everyone thought that Scotland had moved beyond that. But certainly Wednesday night has restored a bit of faith. It was really excellent. It was an excellent performance. It was 3-0 going on 5 or 6. Admittedly against Ukraine, who were missing Zinchenko through injury, missing a couple of others, but it was still a good Ukraine side. And Scotland wiped the floor with them. And everyone was very surprised at that too. But you look at the Scotland team, on paper, they are a good team. The 10 of the 16 players who played against Ukraine play in the Premier League. Another one plays in Serie A. Another one is a Celtic captain. And another one is Scotland's Player of the Year last year. So it is a good group of players. Everyone in Scotland is kind of anticipating that there's something very, very good coming down the track for this group of players, because their still average age the other night was 26. But they've got to prove it. They've got to bang out consistent performances. They were doing that before June. Then they had those 2 horrible losses. And certainly they look to have put the wheels back on the bike on Wednesday night.
You wrote after the Ukraine game that it was great to see Scott McTominay in midfield and how important that was, and that you hoped he was going to stick. Do you think Steve Clarke will stick with him there, or and it was clearly successful for them?
Yeah, I hope to God he does, Kathleen. I mean, you know, everyone in Scotland just kind of winces when McTominay. Clarke likes to play a back 3. He played a back 4 the other night through necessity. He didn't have that many centre halves, a lot of injuries. Everyone wants Scott McTominay to play in his natural position, which is the centre of midfield. He was exceptional the other night, absolutely bossed the show. But when Clarke moves him back as a right centre half of a 3, he's got his weakness there. And Ireland ruthlessly exposed his weakness there in Dublin. I think he will play in the midfield from now on. I hope he does. Maybe it's hope over expectation. But I hope he does play there. Scotland are a much better side when he plays there. And I would imagine that he will be there tomorrow night.
I was making the point earlier on that it's interesting that Casemiro's arrival at United is going to end up with Stephen Kenny getting the sack, which is an unlikely turn of events.
Well, he's keeping Casemiro out of the Man United team, McTominay, and he's had dogs abuse. You know, as one of their own, he's probably top of the queue when it comes to abuse being dished out by the Man United fans, but he soaks it up. He's like a human sponge for information, as that's what they say, and he also seems to be a human sponge for punishment, because he's had terrible stick throughout his time at Man United, more or less, on and off. But he's in a terrific run of form at the moment.
Yeah, and like when you look at the, I mean, maybe there's clunky comparisons with John McGinn in some regards as well, because he obviously plays really well the other night. He scores, and it certainly made me rush to think why this level of performance isn't continuing at club level, and maybe more question marks. I don't know. Is the view that he's being held back by Stephen Gerrard, that actually the John McGinn that everybody sees playing for Scotland is the best version of him, and that's ultimately down to Gerrard, or what's the view on McGinn?
No, look, the view on McGinn is that he's eulogised by the fans at every opportunity. Even before a ball was kicked on Wednesday night, they were singing the Super John McGinn song. Like, McGinn he's a curious player. He puts in performances that make you think, gosh, this guy should be playing at higher up the league than Aston Villa. And then he puts in other performances you think, oh no, Aston Villa is actually his level, and maybe even beyond his level. Against Ireland, he was awful. Gave the ball away constantly, and was a major problem for Scotland. But the other night, certainly since after when he got the goal and beyond, he looked brilliant. He looked like a Champions League player. So he kind of, I still don't know what to make of John McGinn. He gets these goals. He's a terrific goal scoring record for Scotland. He is the talisman on so many occasions, but his performance level it's not as consistent as it should be.
What do you think Scotland are going to see as the problematic areas for them in the game against Ireland? Like, where are the bits that Ireland can look to target to get a result on Saturday? Because I'm not all that confident that Ireland are going to get a result. I think Scotland are going to manage to do it.
You probably would have said that in June as well. I certainly said that in June. I thought Scotland would win, and how wrong I was. I think the mindset is a big thing with Scotland. If you look at that performance in June in Dublin, they were so passive, and Ireland had a kind of rage for victory that blew Scotland away. Ireland's backs to the wall, and they delivered a very, very big performance. It was similar to that for Scotland against Ukraine. Their backs to the wall, and they produced a big performance. I think if it will only know the point of weakness in the Scotland team once we see the team. If he puts McTominay back into the defence, which I hope he doesn't, from a Scotland perspective, probably hope he does for an Ireland perspective, then that's a point of weakness, for sure. If Tierney is not playing, there's talk that he might be rested because they need him to play against Ukraine next Tuesday. Scotland without Tierney is not the best version of itself. He is the best player. Tierney is Scotland's best player by a distance, actually. And he just does something to the rest of these players when he's in the side. So if Tierney is rested, that's an area that Ireland can exploit. But with Scotland, as ever, it's all in the head. It's all in the head. They've produced, under Steve Clarke, they've produced brilliant performances and they've produced horrendous performances. And we know that they have the talent to produce good performances, but have they got the mindset to be that ruthlessly consistent from here on in? We thought they had up until June, then they got hammered by Ukraine, hammered by Ireland, and everyone's going, hang on, this team is not where we thought it was. So I think a lot of it for Scotland is in mindset, it's in attitude, it's in edge. And they didn't have it in Dublin, but they did have it on Wednesday night.
Mm. And like it is hard at that level to implement your plans. If you're Steve Clarke, if you're Stephen Kenny, that the windows of opportunity to work with your team are obviously tight. And Steve Clarke was talking about a lot of the, what did he call it? Was it boring work that they had done after the couple of losses in the summer and ahead of the Ukraine game? So was that that boring work was, it seemed to be like lecture room stuff or whatever away from the training pitch. Set piece stuff, Tom, or what's your understanding about what that was all about?
I think it was about shape. I think it was about shape of the team. Literally walking through on the training ground, the shape, and it's not rock and roll, but it has to be done. And I think the shape of the side was very, very good against Ukraine. Also set piece stuff. I mean, they get Austin McPhee is their set piece coach. He's on the coaching ticket with Stephen Gerrard at Aston Villa. He'll be delighted with 2 goals from 2 corners. So I think stuff like that. But I think primarily shape, because against Ireland they're shape, but they didn't have a shape. I don't know what they were working on that week, but they had no shape. They were all over the place with massive gaps, and Ireland were obviously terrific on the day.
Obviously you mentioned about the set piece goals. Ryan Fraser and Lyndon Dykes off the bench. Fraser 2 assists, Dykes 2 goals, like a master stroke, obviously from the management team. You take all the kudos for that afterwards. Have they now played themselves into the mix for a start against Ireland, or are they back in the bench?
I think it's a good question, and the honest answer is we don't know. The Ukraine game, Scotland can afford to lose this game tomorrow, but if they beat Ukraine, then they top the group. So it's difficult to know what Clarke is going to do. He gives nothing away. He's kind of heroically kind of deadpan and stoic when it comes to this stuff. Seems like a war with journalists to get a line out of him, and he never gives a line. But I think Hickey, because Nathan Patterson is injured, and Hickey starts at right back. I think Fraser could well start just to shake it up a bit. His rift with Clarke has healed, obviously, and he comes off the bench. I think he was nervous coming off the bench. He thought he might be booed by the Scotland fans. He wasn't, and then he gets his 2 assists, and now he's a hero. Dykes' goal scoring record. Dykes is a very limited player. Shea Adams is by far and away a better footballer, but Dykes' goal scoring record for Scotland is really good, relatively speaking. He's only 3 goals short of the great Joe Jordan's total, so he might well start. I think we're talking maybe 3 changes, something like that. But Clarke, so trying to second guess Clarke is a mug's game.
I'm interested in what you said there, because you said, like, obviously Scotland can afford to lose the game, and they're thinking about maybe resting Tierney so that he'll be able to play in the next game, but also that mentality is incredibly important for Scotland. Surely it's important to make sure that he plays and make sure that you keep the good faith running and keep the game running.
Oh, I hope he does, for Scotland's perspective again. I think it's a high risk if he does rest Tierney. I think it's a high risk because, I'm saying, look, Scotland can afford to lose the game as long as they beat Ukraine. In Poland, that's a big ask. My hunch is that there is a lot of chat that he might rest Tierney. My hunch is that he won't. He certainly shouldn't, in my opinion, because, as I said earlier, Ireland or Scotland are a different team when he's there. I mean, he's played left centre back for Scotland. He's played left full back for Scotland. He's played left wing back for Scotland. He could play left side of a 3 up front for Scotland. He's about 4 players in one, Tierney. Plus, he's a brilliant personality. He is essential to Scotland. Most of Scotland's best results over the last number of years are with Tierney in the team. So to take him out would be a big gamble.
You predicted a Scotland win in the summer, Tom, so I'll invite you to do something similar there if you can sign off with
no problem.
2-0 to Scotland, yeah.
It's very comfortable Scotland victory. Being the worst tipster known to man and womankind, I'm going for Scotland victory.
Are you actually thinking?
Yeah, look, I think if Scotland, we can't see inside these guys' heads, right? But I think if Scotland's attitude is right, it's a home crowd, it's going to be a sellout. It was very noisy at Hampden on Wednesday. If their heads are right, I think Scotland win this game. I said that last June as well. Their heads weren't right, and Ireland were way better than I thought they were going to be, actually. But I think if Scotland go into the game with their ready for a battle, and they weren't ready for a battle against Ireland in June. They were absolutely not ready for what Ireland brought to the table. If they are ready tomorrow night, I think Scotland should win this game.
All right. Well, if you listen to John McGinn, they certainly are. Pleasure. Tom, thanks a million. Tom English.
No problem.
BBC.
Cheers.
Thanks a million. Enjoy the game at the weekend. I don't know. We're going to talk to Nathan at some point. He hasn't reappeared since he threatened / promised to come on the show, but earlier on, Kathleen. So
he's still on the OTB jet.
He is. He's going to be circumnavigating around Europe on that if he's managed to get his hands on such a thing. It's 9:10 Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And here's what we've got coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of the day. It'll be Dennis Ogie-Moran from 1 o'clock on OTB Gold. Waterford is the subject of Mount Rushmore at 3 o'clock today. Owen Heary, the Shelbourne legend, is in the Team 33 League of Ireland slot at 4 today. And Keith Andrews meets Philly McMahon from 6. That's all on OTB Sports Radio. You can follow across our social channels. You can subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network as well for all the very best and latest in sports content. So that's where we're at. We have football to continue the show. We're going to be back after these with the legendary former Arsenal manager Vic Akers.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The only thing you care about.
That's right, the Football Pod is back. If GAA is the only thing you care about, make sure you don't miss the return of Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue.
You just knew it was coming down the track.
Subscribe to the Football Pod wherever you get your podcasts.
Celebrate European Week of Sport this September at the Be Active Festival. An action-packed day out for the whole family at Sport Ireland Campus, Blanchardstown. Come and try new sports, fitness challenges and skill tests at Ireland's biggest sporting festival. Meet sporting legends. Check out the Inflatable Zone, Village Food Market and much more. There's something for everyone at the Be Active Festival. Saturday, September 24th at Sport Ireland Campus, Blanchardstown. Book your tickets now at beactivefestival.ie.
If your business relies on a van, that wouldn't sound good. But this does. Get up to 75% off van insurance. Now available in FBD branches nationwide. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. 75% no claims discount based on 5 years claims free. Available on new van policies. Used for farm or business purposes. Terms and conditions apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 9:12. You're very welcome back to the show. I'm delighted to say that Vic Akers joins us on the line. Good morning, Vic.
Good morning, sir.
Thanks a million for taking the call. People will be very familiar with your story, Vic. Managed Arsenal women's team for 22 years, won 32 trophies, if I'm right, including a quadruple in 2007 with Emma Hayes by your side. We wanted to get you on North London Derby this weekend. A record-breaking crowd expected at the Emirates, 50,000 thereabouts. Could you have dreamed of this sort of stuff when you set out all those years ago?
Well, that's what we did dream of, yeah. And it was a dream then. And obviously over the last sort of 10 years, it become much more of a reality, and we can see where the game is moving. It's going to be exciting times in the front of us, I think.
Vic, you're going to the match at the weekend, is that right?
I am.
Do you think this boost is from, like, is it from the Euros? Is it just the way the WSL is heading? Like, where are we getting all this interest from?
Yeah, I think the Euros have really kick-started the sort of interest from more sort of male side of the support. It wasn't quite as much. I think families have grown and to attend. As we saw in the Euros, the final, and there was no arrest, nothing like that, no trouble. It was just an enjoyable event and a wonderful day for everybody.
I think as well the fact that, I mean, in recent years, it's actually become a proper North London derby in the sense that for a good few years there, Arsenal were hammering Spurs every time they played. They were putting massive scorelines past them. There wasn't the same bite there. There wasn't the same sort of competitiveness. And obviously Spurs have come on quite a lot in the last few years. And now it's a proper derby. I mean, we saw Katie McCabe in the derby last year willing to go to battle for Beth Mead over some tackles that were being put in on her. In terms of the actual game at the weekend, do you think this is going to be a competitive one? Because obviously a lot of people are tipping Arsenal as potentially the only challengers to Chelsea this year in the WSL for the title.
Yeah, as we saw on Sunday, the results didn't go to plan for everybody, I believe, except obviously Arsenal and Man United of the top four clubs. Chelsea losing it. In the end to Liverpool was a massive shock, and obviously Man City losing at Villa. So it's going to be quite an event this time around, I think. And obviously Chelsea have started exactly the same way they did because they lost the first game last season as well, but then recovered to carry on and win most after that.
Yeah, I think there's a mad stats.
Tottenham and Arsenal will always be a feature, hopefully friendly feature, because obviously, the one thing you don't want is problems at them sort of games, especially women's games, which I don't think we'll ever get. So it's a good event, which I'm looking forward to personally. And again, Tottenham have improved. Their results over the last couple of years have improved immensely. And the club side has improved overall because obviously being incorporated then with the football club from the last 5 years or so is what everybody wants. It's what we want in women's football. It's for major clubs to take on the mantle as Arsenal did way back in the 90s.
Well, everyone who knows your legacy knows some of the players that you scouted when you were there with Arsenal women. Obviously, there was Emma Byrne, Alex Scott, Kelly Smith, some incredible players there. Who are the ones that you look at now in the Arsenal squad that impress you?
Well, obviously, I'm not saying this for the sake of saying it because we're talking to the Irish public. But Katie obviously is outstanding, as is the captain. She was there with me as well. So, and she grew up with us as a young girl. She's going to be an outstanding footballer on and off the pitch, and obviously Katie hopefully can get the Irish side over the line as well to make the World Cups.
Will you tuning in to our playoff match when it comes up in October?
Yeah, we tuned into that for sure. As we watched the previous ones, and quite events. It was a little bit unattended, the last one, I thought, but again, it's not the same in those sort of countries, women's football. But hopefully it will develop as ours has.
Well, it's something we were talking about, just in the sense that they've obviously sold 50,000 tickets for the match at the weekend. It'll break the English record for WSL game if everyone turns up. But we've seen it here where we'll have a sellout crowd in our ground in Tala, but people won't turn up because tickets are quite cheap. So very much hoping that people do turn up to the game at the weekend and that everyone who is committed to their tickets does arrive, because as you say, it is going to be a spectacle. The talent that's on show is incredible, and there's nothing quite like it. I was at the Emirates for the Barcelona games in the Champions League, and even though it was pretty empty then, I think there was only like 12 to 14,000, which isn't a lot of people in a stadium of that size. The atmosphere was great. You had the Champions League music playing before the lights were going. Brought a couple of, I was working at ESPN at the time, and some of the lads brought their younger daughters, and they were just like overawed by the experience. They were like, this is amazing.
Well, that's what it is. It is for most people, probably in the 50,000 that have bought tickets. And as you say, if they arrive, that's what it is. It's maybe probably a first-time experience of watching a female game. And let's hope that we present, the proper football that we can play.
Vic,
but that's both.
You're still the only English manager to bring an English club to a Champions League title. Arsenal are obviously in action at the moment in it. They drew 2-2 with Ajax during the week and have to now go over to them and play. English teams have struggled a lot in the Champions League, and I suppose a lot of people talk about the WSL, that it's the best league in the world, but even Chelsea, I mean, you look at them last year, you look at City being knocked out already this year and qualifying to Real Madrid. What do English teams need to do, and I suppose specifically Arsenal, to kind of bridge that gap, because they really were being pushed during the week, and I know it's probably one of the few teams we wish we didn't get at this stage of the qualification process.
Yeah, I think obviously watching the game myself here on TV, it's the finishing at the moment for me that is required to upgrade. We seem to be able to make the chances, but not finishing them off, and I think that's a big failing at the moment. But I'm sure the manager will get the grips of that, and hopefully get that rolling. Because otherwise it'll be a long season. I thought the other team stayed in the game, very well. But having said that, I think Arsenal will probably go there and win 2 or 3 goals.
Vic, we're it's a national obsession here talking about Katie McCabe and what her best position is. It's a regular conversation for us here. You're watching her week in, week out. The conversation here tends to base itself around whether she's best positioned a bit closer to goal or try and get her up a bit further up the pitch where she can influence things a little bit at that end. And what's good for Arsenal might not be good for Ireland, of course. But what's your sense of Katie, the player now at this stage of her career, and from what you're seeing week in, week out, and how she's best utilised?
Yeah, I mean, from the left side, obviously, that's where she needs to be used. Whether it's in a 4 or in a 3, the 3 probably would suit her for me more. But Arsenal play a back 4, so I think she's better off to play in the left side of midfield. For me, because she's closer to the other box, and she is a threat when she goes forward. She's got pace and strength and energy, so that's what you're looking for, to ignite the rest of the team, and that might just get the goals that we're just talking about now.
And you talk about getting the goals that are needed. Obviously, you have McCabe in there, you have Mead, you have Blackstenius teaming up with Miedema. Where do you see it coming from specifically in all those different partnerships? Because I think towards the end of last year we saw Miedema and Blackstenius in particular teaming up really well. Blackstenius has had a particularly good start after not all that great at Euros, although it was just a difficult Euros in general, I think, for Sweden. Where do you see those goals coming for Arsenal?
Yeah, I think Beth obviously after the Euros, for me, I like to see her just pick up the mantle and carry on the way where she was, and if she can really discover that goal scoring form, then I think she'll be the one that comes out of this in more goals for the club.
And as Adrian said, we are obsessed with our Irish players, and you worked with Emma Byrne back in the day. She does quite a lot of work with us here now, talking about football and assessing football, and she's a woman who doesn't mince her words. She knows exactly what she wants, and she says it. Was she like that back in the day when you brought her into the squad?
Yeah, we had an absolute wonderful group, and Emma was paramount in that. Obviously, knowing what she's like, and she grew up in that sort of way with us, and was the best goalkeeper in the league without a doubt. And at that time, probably goalkeepers were not so good in the air, but Emma was outstanding in the air, and she did an absolute marvellous job for the football club, and I was delighted that she played for our club.
And when you were scouting these players back in the day, 'cause obviously it's a very different setup to what it is now. I mean, you can watch multiple games across multiple screens. There actually is television coverage of most of the top leagues, but you didn't have that fortune, but you still managed to bring through like some of the greatest players of that generation, and obviously had incredible success with them in the team. Yeah. What was that process like at the time?
Made easy for me because of what I had in the players, as you say. I mean, Emma, Kira, Yvonne were all in that group of 2007. Niamh Fahey was around just prior to that. So I think I added them up. The Irish girls that I had in was probably around about 10 girls in the early 90s and beyond. So it was a good stage for me to pick up talent in Ireland.
I remember when I was. I had a
good friend there, Pat Duffy, and my sort of happy place was Westport, and we travelled over, took the team over, and played in a little competition over a long weekend there, and the people were fantastic to us. And a lot of Arsenal supporters down there, and if they're listening now, I want to wish everybody all the best, and good friends that we made there.
Vic, we'll have to get you over again for a reunion tour in Westport. I think would be quite good to get the band back together.
So if Pat Duffy is as well, you'll be over next week, Vic.
That's right. Yeah, Pat will have me back in. But how is it? We had such a good time. It was lovely, and we brought the side over as well to play the national side. At one point there, and I think we played at where did we play? Can't remember now. Might have been Shamrock Rovers ground or somewhere there, but that was a good event as well, and everybody thoroughly enjoyed it. So we had at one point also all four captains in the team. We had Kira Grant from the island. We had Jane Ludlow from Wales, Faye White, England, and famous Scottish centre forward as well.
A very impressive squad, all in all. And
yeah, Julie Fleeting, obviously. Yeah.
And Vic, obviously you were on the women's side, but you were also there for the men's side through some pretty impressive years. Are there any big moments that stand out to you there?
Yeah, obviously the biggest moment, probably the unbeaten season. Those lads were fabulous lads as well. It reminded me of my girls' group in Venice, the camaraderie and everything that we had, and we were all so close. And yeah, I think that was the big standout point for me. Then still have friends there, Patrick and Dennis I still speak to, and Thierry Henry, and I was at a funeral yesterday speaking to some of the other old boys as well. Nigel Winterburn being one of them, and it was just nice to be seeing boys like that after all these years.
And do you still get to many of the games?
I get to a few of the games, yeah. I gave my season tickets up last year because different reasons, but I still get to go. Certainly to the girls' games, I'm always invited to the box for that. As I'm the president of the ladies' football club. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, and I'll look forward, hopefully, to some more evenings there as well in Europe.
And to put you on the spot, what do you think the result is going to be from the North London derby?
I've no doubt what the result will be, but obviously it's got to be Arsenal, isn't it? So for them to lose to Tottenham on their home ground, I don't think will be too popular. But no, I'm sure the Arsenal will win tomorrow.
suspect you might be right. Vic, great to spend a bit of time in your company over the last little while. Thanks a million for joining us.
My pleasure, Adrian. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Vic Akers on the line there. What do you think is going to happen?
I think Arsenal will win, but I do think it'll be tight. I think they'll be buoyed by the crowd, by, as Vic says, being at home. I mean, losing to Spurs in front of 50,000 for the first time that's ever happened in the WSL. I don't know if any of them could show their faces again after that. So I know, I think so. Like, Spurs last season started particularly well, but kind of petered off a little bit. They just didn't really have the depth or the talent to go for the whole season. So I think if they're going to catch Arsenal at any time, now is the right time. But definitely with the new sign, well, with just the general squad and the fact that they'll probably be smarting a bit after that 2-2 against Ajax during the week, I think Arsenal will do it.
You're right. We're going to talk to Nathan in just a moment's time, but I do want to remind people about the developing situation at Munster Rugby. They've now put the official statement on their website this morning, and it reads: the below statement has been issued by Munster Rugby and Chris Farrell. Munster Rugby and Chris Farrell have agreed that with immediate effect he'll be stepping back from his involvement with the Munster squad, whilst legal proceedings in France concerning his alleged involvement as a witness to an alleged crime in 2017 are ongoing. They say, to wrap it up, as this is an active legal matter before the French courts, we have no further comment. And this was all in relation to a story that developed by Shane Phelan, the Irish Independent, over the last 12 hours thereabouts, to report that Farrell had stepped away. They had been in contact with Munster about all this, and it all relates to cases against Farrell and 4 other players which have been referred to a French criminal court following allegations that a young woman had been raped, and it dates back to 2017. And Farrell's the allegation against Farrell is that he was witness to that, and that is ongoing, and obviously there are other players involved there, and this will all take its course over the next little while. That Farrell was not accused of rape, it must be said, but that he was facing an accusation of not stopping a crime. So Munster have issued that statement on the website, and we felt it important to bring it to your attention this morning. That has come up in the last couple of hours. Right, we are almost time. We've John Giles to come before we leave you this morning, but we are going to turn our attention back to the football. We were chatting to Tom English a little bit earlier on about how Ireland might fare at Hampden Park tomorrow night, and there for us tomorrow will be Nathan Murphy. He's currently en route somewhere. Where are you?
Just stepping off the private jet, Adrian. It's my luxurious lounge. Found the most beautiful spot in this great country as a background. So here we are in Glasgow. Very good, very good. What's your brief for the next day? You business or pleasure? Busy. All business. Business. I'm going to meet Darren O'Deal a little bit later on, who's very involved with Celtic's underage system at the moment and their B team, and working very closely with Ange Postecoglou and the first team as well. So we're going to chat to him about how he's getting on at Hampden Park, and look ahead to the game with him as well. And then Ireland arrived in yesterday, so they trained this evening. Stephen Kenny's going to have a press conference around about 5 o'clock. Then they'll train at Hampden Park tomorrow, or straight after that, ahead of the game tomorrow. So we get an injury update. It's obviously been a very clear week for Stephen Kenny, a rare one, in that Andrew Mbamidele is the only player who's picked up a knock and is going to miss the games. It looks as though, aside from that, he'll pretty much have a full squad to choose from.
No doubt. You'll be putting Stephen Kenny at that press conference later on. Your utterances from Monday's show, I was amongst the many that were mildly shocked by the fact that we thought this conversation about Stephen Kenny's future had been tucked away nicely, never to be, not to be seen again for the foreseeable future. But suddenly it's all back in the mix, Nathan. You've sparked a national conversation about whether this is the right management team or not.
Sorry, I absolutely believe this is the right management team. The point I was making was that these things, as we've seen from previous international windows, can turn very quickly if you're not getting the right results. I still think Stephen Kenny has a contract at Euro 24, and what we saw in the last 2 performances mean they should really be kicking on over these 2 games, and we will all be looking ahead towards that qualification campaign. But we know that if Ireland were to slip up, that the question marks would be raised again, particularly, I think, with the way Scotland played on Wednesday night. They are expecting a victory tomorrow night. There would be no great shame in that from an Irish point of view. But at home against Armenia, that's where we really want to see Ireland kick on now, because by and large, Ireland's best performances have been against the better teams. We think of the 2 games against Portugal, particularly away against Portugal, away in Serbia, even right at the start away in Slovakia, the friendly against Belgium, the victory against Scotland last time out, away in Ukraine, all real quality performances. The struggles have been against the likes of Luxembourg and Azerbaijan at times. and obviously away in Armenia. So I think what we really want to see is a strong performance, hopefully a good result tomorrow night, and then kick on and a comprehensive victory where Ireland controlled the game. We're well on top on Tuesday night at home against Armenia. So listen, I don't think Stephen Kenny, after the last two performances, he's under any great pressure. The point I was making is that the track record of international breaks is they start one way and they end a very different way.
Yeah. And look, the nature of it as well tends to spark that conversation regardless. And almost a likely set of results is that we, draw tomorrow night. I mean, we could end up losing the game.
Draw 1-1 tomorrow and win 2-1 on Tuesday night.
It's the second one that's the important one. That's the one that potentially sparks that conversation a little bit further. What should we be watching out in terms of team news and potential selections for tomorrow night? What's your sense of the key decisions that Kenny has to make?
I think he's only got a couple of key decisions. One is at centre back, so it's probably one out of Shane Duffy, Seamus Coleman and Darragh O'Shea in that back three alongside Nathan Collins and John Egan. I feel that Duffy is probably ahead of the other two. He only missed the Ukraine game because of suspension. He's got his best form back for Ireland. He obviously hasn't played a lot of football, either has Seamus Coleman, but Scotland were very good from set pieces on Wednesday night against Ukraine. So you would expect that Duffy will return even to just counter that. And the other big decision then is what sort of an attack he goes with. Michael Obafemi and Troy Parrott, linked up as well as any strike partnership, probably since Keenan Quinn in the home victory against Scotland. Obafemi's having some issues at club level, whereas Chidozie Obene, who a year ago was the coming force, he dropped out for those last two games. But he started the season brilliantly at club level. So that's the little balance of, I think it'll be two from those three, Parrott, Ogbena and Obafemi. And I just wonder, with the last performance against Scotland and the link-up play between Obafemi and Parrott, does he stick with those two? I think aside from that, it'll be Bazunu in goal. I say the back three with Collins and Egan. Matt Doherty will come back in on the right. James McLean will keep his place on the left. Jason Malumbi probably still just ahead of Jeff Hendrick alongside Josh Cullen in the middle, and there'll be a spot in there for Jason Knight as well. So listen, he's in a good position. We know with Ireland, every game, 3, 4, 5 changes because of injuries and other issues. Actually, for once, Stephen Kenny is in quite a strong position, and he'll be going out all guns blazing, whereas we heard from Tom English, there are some suggestions that maybe Scotland might go with a little bit of rotation for this one. Looking at the Scottish papers, Adrian, again, I know you touched on it, all John McGinn, the Daily Record. Time to avenge Dublin disaster. Also just inside an acknowledgement of something I've long been saying about John McGinn's arse being the most effective arse in all of football. And John McGinn was asked about this by the BBC of all people.
That's Tom.
He said, I always say, if I didn't have my backside, I'd be at Yeovil or something. No disrespect to Yeovil.
I mean, if he didn't have a backside, I suspect he might be doing something else with his life.
Adrian, the back pages, it's the front pages they should be really worried about. Scotland the grave. Scots die earlier than anywhere else in the UK, and it's getting worse.
Well, I thought it was going to be some Queen-related segue that we had on the... I'm just glad it's not that. Very good. Good man. Well, listen, you flat wide, I presume, sort of kick back there, pretend you're doing a bit of work, and this you insisted you appear in the show this morning just so you could basically let all your colleagues know that you were busy.
Exactly. The Adrian Barry, straight out of your playbook.
Good man. Well, go, enjoy, and look forward to your updates over the next 48 hours.
Thanks, guys.
Good man. Thanks, Nathan. On the line there from Glasgow, he's got it good, Kathleen, let's face it.
It's not too bad. I mean, he's getting to the match and he's getting to enjoy a bit of Glasgow.
Yeah, you should be having a word with that lad and tell him that you need to get over to that North London derby this weekend, and it's all work
I'd
related.
love to. I'm building up to Australia and New Zealand next summer.
If we're in a position where we're having that conversation, Kathleen, we're doing something all right. Listen, enjoy your weekend. Thanks for this morning. Really enjoyed that. Thanks a lot. You've been watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're back on Monday morning. It'll be Ger and Nathan will be back from Glasgow on the private jet. He'll be in studio. Sue Ronan will be here, obviously, to reflect on Ireland's game tomorrow night. Alan Quinlan will be talking about the weekend's rugby. Mike Carlson will be on hand to review the very latest in the NFL, and we'll also, of course, as always on a Monday morning, have the Gillette Labs performance rankings and much more besides. That is it. John Giles coming your way. Have a great weekend.
All right, you're welcome along to Thursday's football show. Delighted to have John Giles in studio with us this week. How are you keeping, John?
I'm okay, Nathan.
You're looking well?
Oh.
Keeping well?
keeping out of trouble.
That's the main thing. That's
as much
the main
as
thing.
possible.
We are on the cusp of another important international window. There's a lot of Premier League to look back on as well. I know you're heading to the Aviva Tuesday night to watch the Armenia game.
Yes, I've been invited to go, and it's Dr. Alan Byrne. I think it's his last match. So, and he's a very good friend of mine. I spoke about him last week. I've known Alan since he was a kid. He's done a great job with the Irish team and that. So, I think there might be a few drinks afterwards, Nathan.
Where's the John Giles haunt these days? You're not in town enough to have a haunt anymore.
No. I'm. You mean home?
Yeah.
Home. I'm in Dublin for a weekend.
Okay.
Here next week, and I'll be looking forward to Tuesday night. See Alan's farewell.
But if you see John Tuesday night, Bacardi and Coke is.
Yeah, not diet.
No, the real stuff.
Oh, I can't stand diet, Nathan. It's like poison. I mean, the way we're talking, you think I was a near alcoholic situation. Yeah. It's only down in, and I can put a little drop in.
Okay.
Just a little drop, and I can drown it then, you know.
Right.
But it's usually has a good effect. Yeah.
Might be a sing-song at the end of the night.
Could be.
Could well be. Yeah. Sounds like it might be a good one.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to it. It should be good. Big send-off for Alan. Anyway.
Yeah, he deserves it. Yeah, he's been there a hell of a long time. You don't go to many matches anymore. Do you miss not going to matches and not being around the game as much?
Well, I used to go to matches when I was on RTE doing the matches. You had to be there for that, Nathan. But I was never. Like in England, I get a lot of offers to go see, say, West Brom playing and like when you're a player, you see, you drive up to the ground, you come out, you drive down. There's no hanging around and getting there early. Like if I go to West Brom now or any match, like you've got to be there at least an hour beforehand. You've got to park the car. There's a lot of that, and I mean, there's a lot of matches on telly, as you know. So I haven't been to a live match for ages. And obviously the Irish match I watch on the telly as well. But we used to, as you know, in a few years ago, you'd be at the match because you were doing it live from up on the stand, and that, you know. Sometimes the away matches you were obviously in the studio.
And would you have found a big difference when you were doing your analysis of, being there at Lansdowne Road compared to, as you say, an away game, or if it was a Champions League game where you're back in studio? Would you have found it a lot easier to do analysis when you're at the game and you're seeing the full picture?
No, you'd probably easier in the studio, Nathan, because you could be watching the match, but you could ask one of the lads who are doing it for you, can you go back on that a little bit? When you're doing it live, you're out of it in many ways. You don't have the same technology at, say, Lansdowne Road as you would in the studio.
Are you, I was going to say, a bit fairer almost when you're in the stadium because you're kind of more aware of the atmosphere and the hype and the emotion of it, whereas I guess when you're in studio you're a bit more removed, as you say, you're saying stop, go back. You're looking at it probably more in an analytical sense, whereas in studio you get a better sense of the occasion.
Well, the problem you see with doing it at the ground is you're in a little box, and you don't have the same atmosphere as the fans.
Right, yeah. So it's sort of soundproofed, and you're not fully getting it.
I think when we were doing it, I prefer doing it in the studio because we had more technology around us if we needed to look at something. Do you know what I mean? Watch the goal or go over the goal or that. It was easier to do, I think, in the studio.
So we've got two big games coming up, Scotland and Armenia. They're important for different reasons in terms of seedings and things like that. They're also still important for Stephen Kenny because it was a mixed bag in June. Started off horrifically with the defeat in Armenia, followed up by a defeat at home to Ukraine, but they managed to turn it around, build a bit of momentum. And it's been sort of like that for Stephen Kenny over the last 3 years. Yeah. They get a couple of results, you feel, that's it, they're going to kick on.
Yeah. And
there's a big setback. Are you seeing in general signs of progress? Do you feel like they're ready, that this is almost a finished article of his team now?
I would imagine so. I mean, if you say he's been doing it for 3 years, I don't know, he's had quite a lot of matches. He's had a break from it now. I mean, Stephen, I believe now would know all these players inside out. You know, he's give them all a go. And it takes time, as we spoke to early on. You know, you in your head, you have Joe Bloggs can do that, and then you find out he can't do it. So that's 3 years. I'd say Stephen would really, really know his best team now, definitely. And then you go from there, you know.
What would you put more emphasis on in terms of that selection? So the players who played well against Scotland last time out and over in Ukraine, some of those aren't playing a huge amount at club level. There's other players, the likes of, say, Chidozie Ogbene, who dropped out of the side for those couple of games, but has started the season domestically very, very well. Like, that is the job of the managers, to get that balance. What would you put more on in terms of selecting your 11?
I think you'd know before they play the season, Nathan. Anybody. Because, as you say, somebody could be playing, Joe Bloggs could be playing, he did particularly well. And I found it when I was management like that, okay, he's done that for his team, but the guy that I want has done it for us all the time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, lads can be on form, but that's for the club team. But you have to go, what's he done for me when he's played for me? Do you know what I mean? And mostly, I know what he can do. I know what they all can do now. Right, I know there's some lads coming back into the squad and that, and the squads are very, very big. But Stephen, in my opinion, as manager, would ignore in many ways club form. You know, I found that when I was manager, I wouldn't have had as many players in it. But how did he play for me? What did he do for me? You know.
Yeah. Different system.
It's a different.
To what they're playing
it's a different thing altogether. You only have the international players for a certain period of time. It's not like having a club. The clubs have the players all the time, but they're your players. You know, because what you'll find is at club level, the manager that's picking that team, he likes this particular player. That's the way he wants to play. But it's different for you, right? And the problem is, as international manager, you're not with the players all the time.
Yeah,
you're club manager, you're there all the time. You're playing matches week in and week out. But you have to go on what the player did for me at international level, you know? And that's the way. And I think Stephen would know these players inside out now, definitely.
So no excuses left at this stage. One player who I think is nailed on to start is Nathan Collins. He had a very good June window and obviously capped it with that sensational goal against Ukraine in the last game. I said quite the week, obviously. Sent off for the karate kick on Jack Grealish on Saturday. You've obviously seen a bit of him in the Premier League this season, and there's a lot of expectation on his shoulders already. How good is he now? How good could he become?
I think he's really good. I think it'll take a bit of time for him to become a really top Premiership player and an international player. Was he 21? I think he's got everything. Now, what he needs now is experience. I mean, it showed on the foul he committed on Grealish last week. You know, he didn't go to hurt him, but it was a bad decision to make at that particular time. And especially in the position that he's playing at centre-back, like it's probably one of the most responsible positions on the pitch, apart from the goalkeeper. You know, you have to learn your trade. Like, you can't go here, you can't go there. It'll take time. You learn match by match. And he's very, very young yet, and he's very inexperienced at the moment. But I think he's got what it takes to become a really, really top-class player.
Right.
And he learns as he goes along. You know what? Like, he played in Ukraine, wasn't he?
In Ukraine, he scored the goal.
He was outstanding. He was outstanding in the match. So he'll have a hard job at the weekend, I think, with Scotland. Scotland are quite good.
Well, they looked very good last night,
good. But he learned as he goes.
What is it that you're seeing about him at 21 that suggests he'll go to the very top?
Like last week, he was a bit anxious to get to the ball. That's how he committed the foul, you know, because he didn't go to hurt the player. But it was a bad decision to make. And he learned match by match by match by match. Now, I can't go there. I can go into that. I can make a tackle there. I can get on the cover. You know, there's a million and one things to learn from that position. But in my opinion, he has the basic skills and commitment, and he's a big lad. I think he's going to be good in the air. From what I've seen of him, I think he's going to be a really, really top-class player. But he will make a few mistakes. It's a very, very difficult position They usually learn the trade. I remember John Terry playing with Chelsea when he was 28, 29. He knew when to go there. You knew when to go there. Midfield is similar. All the positions are like they have the positions in, but they're not as vital. In midfield, you could go into the wrong position and give the ball away.
Yeah.
And you got to defend in his position.
You miss a tackle, it doesn't necessarily result in a goal.
There's a good chance of goal. And he'll have to live with that and learn from it. And he seems a really good lad. So as he goes along, he'll get better and better.
I'm sure there's plenty of centre-halves who don't lose that rashness, and maybe they're the ones who don't make it to the very top. But
it's true. You're right, absolutely right. And you see them, and they can have a good game on the day when you have to go for everything, you know. And they never learn. Some days you don't have to go; you have to sit back. You know what I mean? We've seen some terrific players. I think John Terry, in fairly recent times, was brilliant at that. And as he got older, he got better and better, and he knew when to dive in, when to do all the various things. But I think this lad Nathan has the basics that he has is good, and I'm sure we'll learn from it.
Yeah, it's a hard thing in a game like that. You're playing Manchester City. You probably feel you need to leave a bit on them.
Oh yeah, well, especially when there's a long ball coming across. And I saw him in other matches as well, apart from Manchester City, and he was a little bit jumpy in that way. He'll settle down as the matches go on. You know, you learn and learn and learn. These are the lads who are really going to be good. You know, they used to have a saying years ago, you play one match and you learn a lot. You play 100 matches and you learn nothing. Do you know what I mean, Nathan? Some lads I've seen lads like that. They're as good at 20 as they were at 30. But I think Nathan Collins has what it takes to get better and better.
And I suppose when he went in on him, he left one on him at least. He was going to get sent off. He
was up in his chest. You know, I mean, I think he obviously thought he could get the ball, but that's learning as well, having experience. Well, no, I won't do that again, because like the tackle was at the vital time of the game. Like Wolves were coming back into the game at that particular. But at any stage, you can't do that. You have to be able to read. See, if he's reading it really well, Nathan, he lets Grealish have it on his chest,
and then
the ball has to go somewhere, right? And then obviously he learned one of his chests has to come down to his feet. Now's the time he comes in. Can still bury Grealish at that time without committing a foul and getting sent off.
Yeah,
but that's all learning.
Grealish has been in the news a lot this week, and again today he was doing media yesterday around the England games. He was obviously asked about Graham Souness's criticism about him, that felt he wasn't doing enough with the ball and wasn't advancing the ball enough with Manchester City, and he sort of bit back at Souness, and Souness has had a bite back again today, saying that Grealish wasn't a quick learner. Where are you on Jack Grealish? He got the goal the last day.
Yeah,
like the £100 million price tag is hanging over him. Grealish has said he's basically doing what Pep Guardiola's asking him to do,
and Pep has said as well. You know, which I don't go along with that. I don't go along with Pep saying, "Well, he's doing what I want him to do," right? So I'll address that particular situation first. He's playing as a left winger, right? And when wingers get the ball, whether they be right side or left, the midfield players have to do their stuff, and all the players have to do their stuff to get the ball out to the players in that position. Now, what wingers are there for, when all that build-up goes out to them, they have to be beating the fullback, or trying to beat the fullback. Almost 90% of the time. That's where all the good play finishes. Out there, now, you've got to take them on. Now, what I see with Grealish all season since he got it, and I don't know the lad, but very frustrated watching him. 9 times out of 10, when it comes out to him, he's right-footed, as we know. He comes up to the fullback, takes it down, comes out, passes it back. And the ball sometimes finishes up his own goalkeeper. When the wingers, whether it be right side or left side, the other lad is very good. Foden is very, very good. When it comes out to him, he beats them well. That's what it has to be. All the good play is from the midfield, gets to that position. 9 times out of 10, whenever time it gets there, then the winger has to do his stuff, has to take the fella on. get the ball over, you score a goal from it. You know, I go back, and I don't like going back too much. When I played at Leeds, we had Peter Lorimer on the right wing, Eddie Gray and that. Remember, and myself in the middle of the field. Our job was to get it from back to front, maybe put somebody through down now and again, but a lot of times, boom, out to Eddie Gray. Right, the last thing we wanted was for Eddie Gray to pull it out and give it back to us, and then we go back again. That's the last thing you want. You've got to take the full back on in that position. Grealish wasn't doing that at all. So I would agree with what Graham is saying. What's he doing? And then for Pep to say, that's what I want him to do, I don't believe that. You can't believe that when the ball goes out to a winger after good play. That next thing is you've got to take him on. Right? Because you're not going anywhere. Now, all the good play that you've done in midfield, and to get into that position, it takes good play to get the wingers in that position. Now they have to do their stuff. So if he pulls out of it, and Pep is saying, he's doing what I want him to do. I can't believe it. I think what Pep is saying at the moment, and doing at the moment, is to try and get his confidence back, not get onto him, right? But the second thing as well with Grealish, to be fair to him, when he played for Villa, he didn't play as a left winger. He played as a left-sided midfield player that could go away from that. He wasn't a winger that was taken to be a part. He was a midfield lad, and he could beat players from that position because it was much easier to do it. And that's what made him a good player. He was, when I watched him playing for Villa, we all did for a long time, he never played as a left winger. Never, as a winger. And all the time I've seen him play for City, he's played as a left winger. It's like buying a full back, right? Or having somebody playing a full back who's a centre half, or vice versa. That's not his position. So I do feel a bit sorry for that. But I'm amazed at Guardiola's response to it, and I'm not surprised at Graham Souness's criticism of him.
We spoke a few weeks ago about Pep Guardiola and the style of play that he's been so successful with, where, you know, there was a quote of him wanting 16, 17 passes for the perfect goal, and that you needed that to open up, and that would sort of feed into what Jack Grealish is saying, that you're sort of constantly recycling possession, you're moving the defence, and eventually an opening comes, and that's where City capitalise. I guess the obvious contradiction to that, and everything Foden has said, is actually Phil Foden. Yeah, because when Foden does get it in that same position, and they play in the exact same spot, it's one or the other generally. Foden goes at the defender.
But to go back to the 16 pass situation that Guardiola did say, I believe did say, that's nonsense as well. I mean, if you get the ball in the middle of the field with Haaland, the way he plays, and he's come off the defender and you put him through, that's what you do. That's one pass. And when you're a midfield player, Nathan, that's what you're looking for. Like when I was a kid playing at Manchester, Jimmy Murphy used to coach, and he said, John, when you get the ball, the first thing you look, can you put somebody through? That's what you look for. That's the most dangerous pass. If you can't, then you do something else. But what Pep is saying, we need 16 passes. I think this is what he's saying, to score a goal. You don't, right? Actually, 16 passes, it depends where you're coming and going from, right? Sometimes it's 16 passes because the ball goes out to Grealish, for example, and he'll put out of that situation, and it goes back 3 or 4 passes to the centre-backs. It drives me crackers watching it from that difficult position. That and the 16 passes goes back to the full. That's passes. Yeah. But what's wrong with Grealish beating the guy and making it one pass? Or if you're a midfield player in Haaland or anybody else, and you put him through, right? We've seen that with Haaland. It doesn't take 16 passes. It can, at times, but what perhaps seems to be saying is, this is a policy we have, that it's going to take 16 passes to put somebody. That can happen, but that's not what you're looking for. As a player, a midfield player, now you're looking for one pass. Can I do it? And then if it's not on, then you go somewhere else.
It's successful.
Well, it could be more successful, Nathan, you know, because the match that they played in the European a couple of weeks ago.
Against Borussia Dortmund.
Right? They were terrible in the first half. Terrible. Grealish was terrible. Gundogan was terrible. And it was no coincidence that at half-time, Foden came on and Bernardo Silva.
Bernardo Silva, yeah.
And they totaled it. Bernardo Silva is the best progressive midfield player that they have. Right, that particular, they had Gundogan on. Rodri is a square passing line. They were terrible. De Bruyne is not playing in the midfield. He sees it, but he's not playing in the mid. So they're not controlling the midfield. They were terrible against them. So when he took Grealish off, and he put Bernardo Silva on.
And Foden on, yeah.
And Foden on. They were a different... Now they had a midfield. Now they had a balance, you know. And they weren't good, but they were second half, they were really good. So I think whenever Foden is playing, or not playing, and Grealish is playing, and Gundogan is playing, and they're not going to be the same team at all, Nathan. They're not even, in my opinion, not even going to be a good team. Now, against Wolves last week, what they do great, City, when they're really, really on it, is when they don't have the ball, to get after them. They're really, really brilliant at that. And first half against Wolves, they were brilliant at it. They went 2 up. Then they slacked.
You had some doubts about that last season with City. Did you have times about maybe just the general attitude of them? You're not seeing anything this season. You think they're at it?
No, at times, you know, when the first half against Wolves the other day, the first half they were really good. You had Bernardo Silva in the middle of the field. You had Foden doing their stuff, and they were getting back and they were getting after the team. Really good. And then funny enough, they went off a bit when they made it 2. They went off a little bit, and Wolves came back into the game. So,
and was Grealish not a big part of that in the first half against Wolves?
Not particularly. He scored, you know, which is good. But even in the first half, once Grealish gets the ball, in my opinion, or any winger, now can I take the full back on? Can I take them? That's all where your good play comes from. That's where the danger comes from. But if you have a picture in your head of Grealish playing, takes it up on his right foot, stops, comes out of it, passes it back. That's the picture I have. That's what he does 90-odd% of the time. Right? Now you're back into your own half of the field. Now, from the position, now you've got to start again, which they're good at, to get into that position again. That's your end product. You know, no matter who it is, whether it be Grealish, once it goes in, now he's one-on-one on the full-back, he takes him on, gets a cross in, that's how you create the goals. Once he comes back there, then you go...
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.